across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. Me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connection device, thank you very much for your company. Thank you very much to whatever it was that managed to make me get out of bed this morning. Not going to lie. Not going to lie, after yesterday's match and various celebrations afterwards, a little bit worse for wear today. I think I may be among quite a lot of people in the country, because let's be honest, folks, we're not that hopeful about the next match, are we? Let's just be brutally honest about it. But fantastic victory last night in the World Cup in that match against the Democratic Republic of Congo. I mean, I just thank God for Harry Kane. Just thank God for Harry Kane. But anyway, we're going to be discussing that, of course, after a nail-biting first half. That was just not fun to watch. That fantastic end. But we'll be talking about that and also a small matter of some politics, because Andy Burnham is demanding that ministers do everything possible to deport a Pakistani grooming gang ringleader who's due to be freed from prison today after 30 child rape offence convictions. The fact that he's coming out of prison at all, as we discussed quite a lot yesterday, is still the bit that completely blows my mind. I'll personally... Let's just crowdfund, right, for the private jet. We bundle him on and we take him to Pakistan and we leave him there. Anyone in? Anyone in? Oh, sorry, is that pushing for a criminal offence? Well, then, of course, it's a joke, isn't it? But seriously, are we really living in a country where we can't deport a foreign child rapist? Really? Because if we are, we're not a serious country. Oh, no, we're not. We know we're not a serious country because right now there is a man in Leicester who, till a few years ago, was earning £100,000 a week as one of the leading people smugglers in France. He managed to get into the country despite having a conviction in France for said crimes. Why he was let out of prison, a mystery to me and you, and is now living in this country, according to a BBC investigation, allegedly committing an awful lot of crimes, including, claiming asylum under a false name and working illegally, driving without a licence, you name it. Funny thing, he's probably not paying all of his tax as well, I know. But again, apparently we simply can't stop these people coming in. Of course, the BBC managed to blame it on Brexit. I kid you not. We'll be talking about that, plus that defence spending black hole. It was £5 billion. Turns out, actually, it's the full £15 billion increase. Downing Street have admitted they haven't really got a clue how any of that money is going to be raised. So good luck, Andy Burnham, with that. So much more to talk about. Just so many, frankly, insane stories happening today. I'm delighted to say joining me for the full chat is Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer and, although not an England supporter himself, as a good Northern Irish fella. I don't know what that accent was either. I don't know. I could have been playing for DLC, frankly, at that point, couldn't I? You did watch the match for me last night, thank you.
I did. Well,
did you enjoy it?
I do support England. No, I didn't.
No one did the first half.
Until the last bit at the end, and it was nail biting. I was on the edge of my seat, but I was just slightly concerned that there was a lot of people on the pitch earning an awful lot of money, not doing their jobs.
They don't get paid that much playing for England, to be fair.
No, but
I don't know why I said that.
Yes, they get £2,000 a match, each of them.
For that level of talent, sorry.
Yeah, well, but they're still keeping their club salaries that are going through. So King Kane, as we're probably calling him now, was on about £5,000 for that match.
Do you know what? I don't care if they win. Yeah. Just don't care. Yeah. You could pay him £1 million for every time they touch the ball. As far as
oh no, he doesn't get out of bed for £1 million.
I watched half the match at home and then had to do a mad dash across London to miss as little of the match as possible. I managed all the goals, ones I didn't want to see as well. I watched it at a screening room ahead of a bash last night, and there was quite a lot of nervous drinking in that second half. I'm not going to lie.
Well, you did say that you're slightly worse for wear. I'm swaying slightly.
Slightly doesn't do justice to it,
I'm swaying slightly because of the fumes that are in the studio.
Wow, that escalated quickly, didn't it, folks? I'm sorry, TalkSport is looking a little bit shaky today as well, if you don't mind me saying. Anyway,
maybe it's the fumes as a walk through TalkSport.
Great result. Hey, result. I don't care. We won. I mean, we should have won. It'd be embarrassing if we did. But next match, 1 o'clock in the morning on Monday, we've got Thomas Tuchel in Mexico City against against Mexico, their home turf.
At altitude.
At high altitude. I mean, yeah, I'm saying we needed to celebrate last night because we don't know how many more we're going to get. Realistically, we ain't going to be the favourites for that match, are we?
Not after the standard of play. And as I say, I'm not a footballer and all the rest of it, but you can tell when a team gels. And for the first half, certainly, there was no gelling amongst that team.
We see a lot of that, and then the second half...
And we see an awful lot of it. And then there was, Thomas Tuchel gave his half-time team talk, and it looked as if it hadn't worked to start with, but then
he needs to start giving that half-time team talk before the beginning of the match.
I think he probably does. I think the team needs to start listening to him.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I don't understand why anyone in that situation needs to be motivated any more than they should already be. Thomas Tuchel has said, look, at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's not a great time for us to watch that match. I've got to be honest, I'm not going to be staying up for that. What we should do as a nation, we should all just agree, no one watches it, right? And then we'll just screen it at 6 a.m. and we'll all just... And no, don't look at any media, and we'll just watch the match at 6 a.m. and then we get to actually see it. But what he said is, like, let kids stay up to watch it, and they can miss school. Or, frankly, they can just man up and go to school anyway. But, I mean, the teachers are all going to be exhausted. 1 o'clock, I mean, come on. If it went to penalty shootout, I mean, you wouldn't be getting to bed till sort of 4 o'clock.
Well, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock after extra time.
Some of us used to get up at that time. That is not going to bed time.
I'm sorry, is this a face of concern?
All right, then. See how this is going to go for the next 3 hours. Assuming I survive the 3 hours, but there we are. I'm hoping you've got a sore head too. Come on, we've got to do the celebration when we can. We'll be talking about this a little bit later. Obviously, let's talk about matters rather closer to home. I mean, every single day there are more stories like this, but we've discussed one of these already, and another one is a big BBC expose. But I find these stories extraordinary. So, first of all, we've got this guy, Shabir Ahmed. You remember his name, right? He's a 73-year-old who was convicted in 2012 of multiple counts of rape and sex offences against girls, some as young as 12 years old. They reckon some 50 girls were victims of this Rochdale grooming gang, which he was a ringleader. 30 offences. They think up to 50 victims of, child rape. Let's call him what he is. He's a child rapist, treated abominably. The girls were all promised, because these guys, they would be deported when they left, because he was Pakistani, dual national. He threw away his, denounced his Pakistani nationality. By the way, we need to make a law you can't do that if you're convicted of a crime or about to be convicted of a crime. You hold that for life. Tough. We want to get rid of you at any point, we can. But because he has arrived in this country, we want to deport him before 1973, under this bizarre loophole in the Immigration Act 1971. If you've been in the country for at least 5 years before 1973, then your deportation can't be considered, and your removal is barred.
There's a really, 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 really simple solution to this, and it can be done in less than a day. Parliament can change
laws. This is my thing. If there's a will, I would love to see the MP who argues against this. Yeah. It's a really simple loophole, and it's very interesting. Andy Burnham, who's about to have all these problems on his plate, he's demanded that ministers do everything possible to deport him. He put a tweet out last night saying he expected, like everyone, he said, I want this vile criminal out of the country. Victims must come first. I will ask the Home and Foreign Secretaries to review all possible options, and they should consider nothing is off the table. And it's under the Home Office is considering closing that loophole. But again, I can't believe that's the first time that loophole has been used.
It's been played several times, and therefore, very easy. Attorney General, draft something, we'll discuss it at lunchtime in Parliament, everyone will have a vote just after lunch.
And if you want to vote against it, that's fine. Yeah. But my God, your constituents are going to know about it. And it goes through, I mean, literally, they've got dangerous dogs
change and have them at the bottom of the steps of the aircraft and frog march them up as soon as it's
I'll
passed.
put them on the plane myself.
Yeah.
There may or may not be a few choice movements of my foot at the same time. I mean, it's just truly, one of the victims has said, this is Ruby, she said that she's been left feeling scared for my safety. She was abused from the age of 12. She said, this guy Ahmed is well known in the Rochdale, Oldham and Middleton area. She says, even if he's not in those areas, presumably, I mean, you'd hope he'd be banned from those, we're told he's going to be tagged. It's due to be released today, by the way. Small point worth making, today.
Why are they releasing him?
Again, he was sentenced. Now, you'll see variously he's sentenced to 22 years or 19 years. These were concurrent sentences, so he's going to only serve 19. Oh, why not the 22? Oh, he hasn't. It was 2012. It's only 2026. He's out already. Again, another one of my bugbears. But she said, even if he's not in those areas, he still knows people and could contact them, which makes me feel unsafe. At the end of the trial, we were told they would all be deported once released, but not one of them has been deported. They are always false promises. And this is the thing. Two of the other gang members, Quarry Abdul Rauf and Adil Khan, both were stripped of their British citizenship back in 2022. They fought a long legal battle, went all the way to the Court of Appeal. By the way, we'd have been paying for all of that. They invoked their human rights, just genuinely, under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Of course they did, to avoid deportation. The Home Office has not said if either man has been deported. I think we've got a bloody right to know whether they have been deported or not. We are not a serious country. You come to this country, you don't assimilate, you don't in any way, just become part of this country, take on the culture. You bring your disgusting, horrific, medieval, backward attitudes to this country. You commit the most heinous of crimes. You get convicted, and you're still here, and not behind bars.
You should have no rights with the convictions that they've got, with
to be
their
ever to come out of
background
jail.
and everything else. I'd far rather than thrown out of the country, so we're not continuing to pay for them.
Is there anyone serious, other than these mad human rights lawyers? Kemi Badenoch, Nigel Farage, if you become Prime Minister, either of you, and at this point I just don't get anyone saying, if you become Prime Minister, can you promise me that if someone is convicted of child sex cases, should we say more than two? More than two convictions. Would that be enough for you to be convinced this person's unsafe? You're convicted of these sorts of crimes. You come out in a box. You don't ever walk free. There's no rehabilitation of child rapists. It's not a thing. You can't rehabilitate. You rehabilitate them when you are, when you are burying them in the ground. That's when you rehabilitate
Should
them.
be capital crime. We need to bring back capital punishment.
I don't support.
Under current law, where it is beyond reasonable doubt, I don't support.
Yeah.
But then I think where you've got crimes where there is no doubt whatsoever, there should be another court that people are referred to that then goes beyond any doubt and then get rid.
All I know is the key thing is when they stopped hanging people, the deal with the British public was very clear that people who killed, murder, when they got a life sentence, that was life, and that's a lie. That is a lie. It is deceitful and it is wrong. So we've got that case, and this is delightful Shabir Ahmed, and then we've got another case. Now this is extraordinary because the BBC. There's a couple of times now they've got a couple of really good reporters doing some great work. This was Sue Mitchell, who's been doing this work for a long time, looking at these people smugglers, looking at the gangs. And the BBC, if this report had been done by us, or say GB, or evidence put out by Reform or Restore or something, oh my goodness, bigoted, you name it. A few years ago, it would have been absolutely. Now, even the BBC have woken up to this. So you've got a convicted people smuggler called Twana Jamal, once described as the godfather of the French migrant camps. He was earning 100 grand a week moving illegal migrants across the channel, mainly on lorries. That was the thing at the time. He's an Iraqi Kurd. He was given a 5-year jail sentence in France in 2016. We don't know how long he served of that. Not 5 years, having been convicted. Again, one of the most successful people smugglers they ever caught. Got 5 years and didn't serve the full 5 years. So France is as useless as us. He was supposed to be deported from France, well, wherever he was deported. Turns out it was here. He's entered this country. He has claimed asylum here. And we think under a false name. He's now running businesses in the Leicestershire area, living a very, very enjoyable life by all accounts. But his he's got a conviction. We're told we check these people. Once you're into that asylum process, they check you. Got to have identity. Biometrics, fingerprints. Well, are you telling me that no one in the French justice system has got this? So, of course, the BBC, of course, they had to do this. This is a classic. This is about 6 paragraphs in. BBC, we've also been told by law enforcement officials in mainland Europe that 15 other convicted people smugglers are now living in the UK under false names, right? But immigration officers have told the BBC that since the UK left the European Union, wait for it, it's become more difficult to check criminal records from some other countries. Are you telling me that we can't get criminal records from France? What a load of tosh. Nothing to do with Brexit. France can either choose to share them or not choose them. I do not believe that for a moment. But there's always got to be a Brexit dig, hasn't there? What if this guy came here, as it looks like he might have done, even before we Brexited anyway. But it is just mind-blowing. Apparently, he's driving a BMW, no licence, doesn't care, saying he's living the good life. Some really interesting quotes in a taped phone call with a mole of theirs. We know everyone in this city. He said, this city is ours. He's making good money. He says, no one touches us here. Even the police won't stop you. So he's got a couple of mini-marts called Candy Corner, both of them. metres away from each other, because you know the way you set up two businesses doing the exact same thing across each other on the high street. One of them next door to the constituency office of the local Tory MP. I kid you not, right? I don't understand. Why are we queuing up for 2 hours to go through customs and do our biometrics to get into Spain or France on holiday, right?
Yeah.
And these people can just rack up here with a criminal record, flout the law again and again. And here's the other biggest mystery. He's earned 100 grand a week, yeah, for years. Has he gone to live in Monaco? Yeah. Has he gone to the Bahamas? No. With all due respect to anyone living in Leicester.
Leicester? I know. I've been to Leicester. Lots.
I mean,
yes.
come on, people.
No, it's shocking. And this, I've got a top tip for the civil servant that is going through his asylum application. You take the asylum application and go the denied stamp and just hit it with the denied stamp and then get him out. This is a simple thing to do. Just get rid as quickly as possible. You know how much it's costing us collectively per year to process the asylum applications of everyone that comes through?
Tell me.
£1.7 billion. Yeah, we're crying out for finding money for defence and all the rest.
I mean, here's an idea.
There's 1.7 billion we could save by just throwing everyone out.
I wonder if the country would be safer if we didn't just have a free-for-all on our borders. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Well, the Home Office under Starmer, of course, everyone thinks, oh, isn't she doing a good job? This is all just pretence. All foreign offenders will face deportation, irrespective of the seriousness of their crime, under her new immigration crackdown from the bill published on Tuesday. I'm sorry. Do you know how I know this is a nonsense? Because here's the next paragraph. Listen to this. Under the Immigration Asylum Bill published on Tuesday, courts will be told there should be a presumption to deport. Wait for it. Here's the kicker. Unless the effect on the person or a member of their family would be disproportionate. I'm sorry. I didn't even make that up.
Yeah.
That's actually what he was saying.
I would love to see a judge turn around and say that deporting someone out of this country is a disproportionate effect over raping a child.
It's a difficult one, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
both morally and practically, that's a difficult one.
You'd have to question the morals of any judge that comes.
I've got to be honest with you. Even like you're a shoplifter. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
Yeah. What's the United States does that?
Seriously, I'm volunteering myself. I will be the one pulling the crying 3-year-old off him as it's. If you want to be together, you can be together somewhere else. But you're not my problem anymore, and you're not the problem for 12-year-old girls in Rochdale or shopkeepers in my high street. Yeah. It's not often I'm speechless. It is genuinely terrifying. The inability, the lack of willingness, the refusal, I would say, the moral culpability of those in charge for God knows how many years, and their refusal to do anything about this. It's just outrageous.
And a government with the majority that the current government has got could change.
All of the last few governments.
Yes, but they could change. They could change this within a couple of days without any problems whatsoever.
Absolutely. I said, if necessary, we'll just crowdfund the private jet. We'll just fly me. And by the way, Pakistan, you don't want him back? Tough. He's one of yours. If you come and live this, you don't get to renounce your citizenship. No, you're Pakistani, mate. We don't want you. And here's the thing. Pakistan, you take him back, not a penny in foreign aid. You shouldn't be getting a penny in foreign aid anyway. And by the way, not a single one of your nationals comes into our country at this point. No one. If you won't take them back when they're wrong-uns, none of them get to come. I don't think it's going to be the biggest loss to us. Got to be honest with you, I'm not sure it is. But if you're diplomats, and you want to come here and do their shopping and go to their lovely restaurants in the West, sorry, no longer an option. You take your wrong-uns back. End of the story. I want to hear from you, especially it's interesting with Andy Burnham, Prime Minister in waiting, demanding the government publicly deport this Pakistani grooming gang ringleader. That said, if he'd been in government the last 2 years, we'd be in the same situation, and he still wouldn't have done anything on it. But he says, he's due to be freed from government today, from prison today. What is your reaction to this? Give us a call. And this story of this people smuggler claiming asylum here. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. Do you think Andy Burnham will get anything done on this front? Do you think, got any other better suggestions on how to get rid of these people? And, what should the policies be? I want to hear from you. Right, let's also talk about a small matter. I won't talk about it for long because we've done a lot on defence this week, but that defence back hole in the budget. We were told £5 billion was being left for Andy Burnham. Good luck, find that yourself. And then we're told it's all, according to the Prime Minister yesterday, under questioning at PMQs from Kemi Badenoch that, look, the money can be found. There's some headroom. There's no headroom. There's no headroom at all. We're like at best part of £1 trillion in debt. There's no headroom. But it turns out, according to Number 10, actually they haven't really identified yet where the other 10 billion of that 15 billion increase is coming from. So actually, there's a £15 billion defence black hole.
Well, and a chunk of that 10 billion that's coming from savings is to come from the savings the MOD itself. So, MOD, you're going to save yourself some money, and we're going to count that as new money and put it out there. The whole thing is a joke, and what was an even bigger joke is all of the defence chiefs yesterday all going onto social media, giving their little pitch to say how good this is as a start.
I think they were kind of required to, weren't they?
Well, no, this is where defence chiefs can turn around to politicians and say, no, I'm sorry, you haven't identified where this money's coming from. You're telling me to cut my budgets. I am not going to stand there and agree with a political decision.
I mean, they
could
could just simply, even if they weren't going to criticise, if they weren't going to cheer for it, their refusal to say something would speak.
Correct.
But we already know this. There are enough people out there saying this. I mean, Kemi Badenoch quoted about 10 of them yesterday. Let's come to another. It's a defence story, very much in your area of expertise as a former senior military intelligence officer. A secret dossier compiled by a former MI6 intelligence officer. Now, we've heard of this guy before, Christopher Steele. He's the former head of the MI6's Russia desk. He's the guy who compiled that dossier on Donald Trump and Moscow and things. Some of it has been, questioned, and but the guy is a serious player in this field. But there's a leaked report claiming that Moscow spy masters were basically spying on, everyone from Peter Mandelson, Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings, Nigel Farage, and they considered crucially that Lord Mandelson was a, quote, privileged contact, and they regarded the disgraced peer, well, he wasn't disgraced when they were following him, as, quote, one of the most significant Russian intelligence services achievements in manipulating UK politics over the past 30 years. Can you also they looked at Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, I don't think they had to look at Jeremy Corbyn. Surely he would have been on side. Surely. What do they mean by this? What do they mean by a privileged contact? And does this mean he was spying for Russia? Because, of course, he has said absolutely nothing of the sort. Yeah, no,
a privileged contact is interesting. He hasn't been described as an agent, which would say that he was spying. A privileged contact is someone that you can more easily persuade to put your argument across in a way amenable
to...
Yes, exactly.
Is that when he was on Deripaska's yacht? Or
well, over a 30-year period, so he didn't spend 30 years on the yacht.
Spent quite a lot of time on the yacht.
And this is where, the more you dig into Mandelson past, the more it would be easy to find compromising material on him and therefore
so
to put him into...
Because a lot of the time we know there's clearly some, blackmailable allegations, certainly, that have been made against him. But also, crucially, as you say, people who are more amenable, perhaps people who would be sympathetic or...
Yeah. But again...
or bribable.
You don't necessarily have to blackmail someone. You know what motivates them, you know what demotivates them. And you facilitate the things that motivate them. And you say, you give this, I'll give you some more if you do this for me. Just do me a favour. And that's manipulating people. That's what intelligence officers do around the world. It's called human intelligence.
OK, well, very, very interesting. Just one final thing before we go to a break. Today, Keir Starmer, on behalf of the British state, is going to apologise to victims of historical forced adoption. They're going to receive a formal apology. So 185,000 babies were taken from their mums, usually unmarried teenage mums, between 1949 and 1976. And campaigners are meeting the Prime Minister in Downing Street ahead of his statement to Parliament. We've had the Church of England apologise. We've had the governments, I think, in Wales and in... the Irish government, I think, has previously apologised. Yeah. Scottish government as well. The horrific harm that was caused to them. We will watch those amazing programmes, Nikki Campbell and, amazing shows, these reunions. I mean, and you're just crying from start to finish about how awful it is what happened. But I don't really understand that it was the role of the state in this and why the state has to keep apologising for things that this was, and as previous reports suggested, this was societal expectations and norms. The families, dads were saying, you don't come back into my family unless you either marry the boy or you give up the baby. I'm not quite sure. I'm not really big on this sort of the government apologising for stuff that happened in the past that was actually not It wasn't being ordered by the government. They weren't going in into girls' homes and stealing their babies.
No, but I'm a bit on the fence in this, because it's the state's responsibility to make sure that the behaviour of all the institutions of state, of which these were the ones that did this,
NHS and others.
Exactly, are working on behalf of the people in the best possible way for the people.
Well, they thought they were, though. Societal norms at the time. Your life would be ruined.
They thought they were, but actually they weren't.
Different societal norms, then.
It wasn't different societal norms. It was something where the state went, we're not interested in this. This is the church that's saying it. This is other communities that are saying it. Therefore, the state didn't have a view, when the state probably should have gone, is this right? Is this wrong? And
I don't think that would have made a blind bit of difference.
It might not have done, but the state should have had a view on it and taken at least an interest.
OK, interesting. Love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Do give us a call, particularly about these just absurd cases that the horrific men we're allowing into this country, and the horrific men we can't get rid of from this country. Do you trust Andy Burnham is going to do whatever is necessary if he becomes Prime Minister to actually get rid of a grooming gang ringleader in particular? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Your call's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, me and Mia. World Cup hangover. 10:31 is the time. Let's get straight to your call. There's no point trying to hide it. You can see and hear it. Who are we kidding? Let's go straight to your calls there. Peter is on the line in Liverpool. Peter, I mean, I think you're just as up in arms about these insane stories about the grooming gang leader and others as I am.
Oh, yeah. It really... It just doesn't make sense to the common person in the street. This guy should be just the frustration that MPs are putting people through is unbelievable because of their political correctness.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, how can they not go, look, these evil... And I think if you're gang raping 12-year-old girls, I think evil is a reasonable word to use, Peter. If you're looking at that as a policymaker or as a judge, or whatever, and you're saying these men are able to use things like European Convention on Human Rights or some silly loophole in the law, if you can look at that and you don't think, well, that needs to change, then I'm sorry, you're complicit. Oh,
yeah. I mean... I came on as well about defence, because why would Russia or any of our enemies actually use ordnance against us? Yeah. Because we're being invaded on a daily basis.
Yeah, and we don't know who these people are.
We don't know who they are, what their background is, but also this new policy that Mahmoud's brought in. Yeah, it's far cheaper for Russia to spend a few million quid to sponsor a charity.
Yes, I believe they probably do.
This is what will happen even more now. And these idiots in Parliament, and that's all they are, really. Yeah. They are absolute idiots. And we're about to get another one.
I'm still flabbergasted how little they appear to get it, and that our anger about this is reasonable and justified and appropriate. Peter, thank you very much. I share your... I can just hear it in your voice, share your frustration. Francis is on the line in Warwickshire. Good morning to you, Francis. What do you want to say?
Oh, I am one of your greatest fans.
You're very kind, thank you.
Yes, I listen to you every day.
Oh, thank you.
Now, there are two things about all this rape business. One, we should start castrating these men once they're caught. That would help.
And you mean the real way, not just the chemical way?
The real way.
Yeah, I could live with that.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, and nobody would do it, but because we mustn't hurt anybody that has done some awful crime like rape, bring the village stocks back.
Too good for them.
Well, we could all throw things at them then. Actually, some of one lot of stocks I used to know in Blockley, which is in Gloucestershire, from here. They were there for many years, and then they removed them, which is a great pity.
Because Francis would be there. I've got to be honest with you. I mean, unless it was a bullet that I could throw, I'm done. I keep saying this forever. I'm just done now. I can't read any more of these stories. I can't hear any more of these stories. No. I just think I don't want these people. They should be behind bars, and I'm quite happy with all their tackle cut off if necessary. We got it. Do you know what? You know what we should do? We should meet medieval with medieval. Mm-hmm. That's what we should do. Francis, thank you so much for your call. Thank you so much for listening. I so appreciate that. But it does make you want to go a bit. You know, I'm going to go medieval on you.
Maybe we should follow the punishment that is in the law of the country that they're citizens of.
Maybe we should.
And just do that. Therefore, we don't have to change our law to bring capital punishment in. Apply Pakistani law and capital punishment comes in.
And also, the lefty liberal lawyers can't complain about it because, of course, it will thus be being multicultural.
Correct.
Solution, everybody. We've done it. Job done. 10:36 is the time. Going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to former Labour Party advisor Mike Buckley. Wonder what he thinks about that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 10:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. Philip Ingram's still with me, and we're now joined by the former Labour Party advisor, Mike Buckley. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning, how are you?
Thank you very well. No, terrible state, to be honest with you. But I blame Harry Kane for that. Thank you very much indeed. Look, let's talk about these horrific cases, these grooming gangs. And the two big stories today. One is the fact that we've got the government unable to deport a grooming gang ringleader from the Rochdale grooming gangs, coming out of prison today, by all accounts, and it's under some silly loophole in the immigration law because he's renounced his Pakistani citizenship. We can't get rid of him. Andy Burnham has piped up on here. And basically has demanded that the Home Office and the Foreign Secretary review all possible options and they should consider nothing is off the table to deport this man. So on that story first, do you think we will see him deported?
I certainly hope so. And my understanding is that he was stripped of his British citizenship once he was convicted of his crimes. So presumably that leaves him with his Pakistani citizenship. I mean, it seems ridiculous that a law passed in 1971, a British law this is preventing us from deporting him, presumably to Pakistan, because I presume that there's no other country that would take him. I mean, my response to this is that we should just change that law. I mean, it's
how quickly can we do that? Realistically, if everyone, because I'd love to see the MP to go, no, I don't think we should change the law. I think we should keep him here, and I'm going to move this guy in with my family, because unless you're willing to do that, you need this guy out of the country. If every single MP literally went, yeah, we will stand in Parliament, on Friday afternoon, and not normally a sitting day, and we will just vote this through to the Lords. How quickly could we get this through and change the law?
I actually don't know the answer to that motion, but I would think it would be pretty swift. And if you remember, I think it was last summer, wasn't it, when they brought Parliament back, I think on a Saturday, to vote through Saving British Steel, when that was... so clearly, when Parliament wants to act swiftly, it can do so. And you would think, given that Parliament is sitting for another couple of weeks, they would be able to get this through. It doesn't strike me as it would be a complicated issue, and I can't imagine many MPs oppose.
It's interesting. I mean, if MPs are willing to come back to save British Steel, but not to save British 12-year-old girls from being gang raped above a kebab shop, that's quite
I agree.
telling,
I think we should all be livid that this is the case. Given now this loophole has been discovered, it should be resolved as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But we've also got, there's other cases, the BBC exposed this. And again, I do think, tides are turning at these points when you get the BBC report after report into these cases. But a people smuggler convicted in France, one of the linchpin of the smuggling gangs over in France, making 100 grand a week by all accounts, and then for some bizarre reason decided to go and live in Leicester. Each to their own, I would say. Wouldn't be my first choice if I had those sort of earnings. No disrespect to the good folk of Leicester. Basically, he's living here illegally. He would have been in the prison system, fingerprints, presumably, biometrics, presumably, and yet he's able to come here. Full BBC journalist is able to find him, but apparently not our authorities.
I was listening to this morning. He's one of 20, apparently, that the BBC are aware of. Apparently, the French police are aware of 15 of them, which begs the question, why on earth are the British police not aware of these 20 people? And you're right. I mean, the fact that the BBC... I mean, fair enough, this is a journalist doing their job. Journalists are meant
brilliant job.
It's a brilliant job. They're meant to go and find out things other people don't know. So this BBC journalist, absolutely, take my hat off to her. She's done a staggeringly great job. The government now needs to act. But we should all be asking the question, how on earth was it possible for this person and 19 other people of a similar background to come and set up a life? I mean, apparently he's running multiple businesses.
Again, that's it. He's an asylum seeker. Apparently, rolling around in a BMW, no driving licence, living it up, big house in in a village near Leicester, running these businesses. One of them is next door to the local Tory MP, a constituency office. And no one's batting an eye. And he says in a recorded phone call, please don't touch us. No one touches us. That's quite telling in itself, isn't it?
I'm as staggered as you are by this. I'm
not. I'm not staggered. I think this is just the norm now.
I don't always agree with you when I come on this show. I mean, as you know, on this occasion, I think we're in the absolutely same position of just being absolutely staggered by this and deeply shocked, deeply offended, and deeply angry, and sitting here thinking, how on earth have our police not found these people? I mean, we know the police was underfunded for 10 years under the Conservatives, fine. Yeah. But this should be top of anybody's list of things to deal with. And thankfully, more money has been going into the system for the last couple of years.
I don't think the police should have to find these people. I don't think they should be in the country in the first place. I mean, I find it utterly bizarre. We're told all these security checks have made. BBC, of course, decided to fact the 8th paragraph to point out that, well, you know, there's been immigration officials say it's much harder since we've left the European Union. Are they seriously saying to us we can't get hold of French biometrics for criminals?
I mean, it is more difficult. We did voluntarily leave lots of databases and lots of systems that would have given us information. So we did make our own lives much, much more difficult by doing that. And it was needless. You can leave the EU without leaving the security database.
But you can also just easily share this stuff. I thought this was the sort of stuff.
It's a very silly thing. Well, they did. They were sharing. We were all sharing it together, going in both directions. We made us and everyone else in Europe less safe by cutting off that information.
Well, apart from the fact, of course, there was simply no problem before Brexit at all, was there, with all these people coming through? By the way, this guy was doing the smuggling before 2016. Hate to tell you.
Yes, it was, but it's made it worse. I mean, clearly, if police don't have access to easy information, it does make it worse.
It's not Brexit making it worse. It's not Brexit making it worse. It's decisions by governments. The whole point is they can make sensible decisions of their own accord.
Well, I mean, once we voted to leave the EU, you can do that in a sensible way or a not sensible way. Yes. An unsensible way is to cut off access to police and crime information, which is what happened because of the obsession with leaving anything European. So we did make ourselves less safe by doing that. So we should go back into those databases, in my view.
Well, why couldn't we have done that in the last 2 years? Who's been in charge for the last 2 years? Let me check my notes. Who's been in charge?
That has, to be honest, that has been discussed. I mean, to be honest, I know for a fact that once they became into power, one of the first things Ifeanyi Keeper was then Home Secretary did was open conversation on going back into those databases. So I think we've got access to
an open conversation. God, getting things done, Keir Starmer, isn't it? An open conversation. He's been in power 2 years. It's absolutely vital for our national security. 2 years on.
But we never should have left them. You know,
it's irrelevant. 2 years on. Been in power 2 years, majority of 170, can't get literally nothing. Let's talk about Andy Burnham. He's the Prime Minister in waiting, we all know that. Not only is he facing not a £5 billion defence spending black hole, a £15 billion, apparently, black hole, because all of that extra money that Keir Starmer sort of gleefully promised defence, still not enough to actually help defend our country properly, but it's not funded at all, it turns out, according to Number 10. You know, hopefully we'll make savings here to give it. But Andy Burnham's going to have to deal with that in his Chancellor's first budget. But it's very interesting polling that's out now. He's, of course, not actually, you know, started yet as Prime Minister, so let's give him a little bit of a leeway. But a YouGov survey has found that voters are concerned that the so-called King of the North would not be governing in the interests of the whole country. 23% believed that he would govern in the interests of the country, and 27% said they thought he'd be more interested in governing on behalf of people from the north. And in particular, this whole planning to work from Manchester at least a day a week, moving part of down, you know, Number 10 to the north. Do you think that's a genuine concern for voters?
I think it's much too early for voters to be able to know the answer to that question. I mean, the speech he gave on Monday, he was at pains to talk about Scotland and Wales and the east of England and the south of England. The point he was making in this country has been over-centralised for a century or more. I mean, probably forever, to be quite honest, but certainly through all of our lifetimes. Devolving some of that power and money out of London, I think, is a good thing. There's lots of evidence to show that decisions are made better when they're made closer to the people that they affect.
Is there? I mean, the devolution for Wales and Scotland, how's that worked out? I mean, bearing in mind it went so well in Wales that Labour are no longer in power.
Some things have got better, some things have got worse.
So there isn't clearly.
To say, it's not a silver bullet, but it does help. And of course, Andy's speaking from 9 years of experience as Mayor of Manchester, where he's been able to do some things, lots of things he couldn't do, would have done had he had the powers and the autonomy and the money to be able to do so. And of course, we can learn from lessons in other nations where things are often done, sometimes done better than things are done here, because they have access to powers that are devolved locally. So I think that's a good thing. But no, voters should not be concerned. Andy will govern, of course, for the whole country. I looked at that poll earlier on. You're right, about a quarter of people are worried that he'll govern for the north. I don't think they need to be worried about that, but I understand why people might have those concerns. But 35% of people didn't know the answer, which I think at the moment is...
they don't. That's the fairest answer.
Let's give him a month.
At least he's not going to govern. He's not going to govern for the interests of Islington, which will make a change from Labour leaders.
No, we won't. Although let's be fair, there's lots of poverty in Islington as well, which needs to be addressed.
Oh, there we are. It's not poverty. No one's living in poverty in Islington.
They are. You know, sadly. Anyway.
No one is living in... Are you saying people are literally, children going starving, walking barefoot on the streets?
I mean, there are some very poor council estates in Islington. You have a look at the stats.
Being poor is different from poverty. I just don't accept this.
No. I mean, it depends what it depends on the measure poverty. The way we measure poverty in the UK.
I know. We measure relative poverty, not the same thing as poverty. It depends on what people mean.
There are people in Britain who can't eat 3 meals a day, sadly, or turn the heating on in the winter. That is not right at all. And I think we would all, I'm sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, it'd be good if energy prices were cheaper. I wonder how we could do that. Anyway, we're going to leave it. We'll go sidetrack. Mike Buckley, former Labour Party advisor. Philip Ingram, just a quick response to you.
Well, Andy Burnham, he's going to come head on with the grooming gang issues that are there, because whilst he was Mayor of Manchester, he seemed to put his head in the sand and ignore all of that. A lot
of grooming gang victims very unhappy with
him. And the only other thing is, with regard to these databases that we keep talking about, the UK ran most of these databases on behalf of the EU and the different police services. So we will have retained our copies of them legitimately, and therefore it's only from 2016 that we'd have had to get into further data swapping agreements, which were all in place.
There's no reason at all why Keir Starmer couldn't, on day one of being Prime Minister, got us back into those things.
No, definitely
It's just, what are you being asked for in return?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Thank you very much, Philip Ingram. Up next, going to talk to TalkSport reporter Max Scott about some event that happened last night. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Now we're going to talk about the reason why I'm in the state I'm in today. It's all down to Harry Kane. It's your fault, Harry. It's your fault. Yeah, of course, that England World Cup match last night. Yeah, we are through to the next round after beating the Democratic Republic of Congo 2-1. But it was fairly nail-biting for most of the time, was it not? Well, joining us to chat about that is TalkSport reporter Max Scott, who also watched the match last night. There may or may not have been a beer involved, but you rather sensibly didn't carry on afterwards.
Yes.
Unlike some of us.
I made the executive decision to not drink any more beer after the full-time whistle. Thankfully, it didn't have to go to extra time. Because...
Oh, he's always sitting there all la-di-da and responsible and professional.
Well, look... Can I also add that yesterday on the breakfast show on Talk with Jeremy Kyle, I correctly predicted that we would concede first and win 2-1.
Did you?
I did.
Because you've done a prediction for us before, but it was actually a better result than the one we got.
I've tried to be conservative, and I think that was quite a conservative prediction that turned out correct, so I am feeling quite smug this morning.
I bet you are.
But
we were not feeling smug in that first half, though, were we?
No, we weren't. But England are a team of moments, Julia. We aren't a team of attacking fluidity, of tactical cohesion, not yet anyway, but we are a team with one of the best players in the world in Harry Kane.
Yeah.
This and we've spoken about this before, but I've got to reiterate how I love that Harry Kane is so unassuming.
It's just a normal bloke.
And he's a normal bloke that speaks well, that is sort of humble to his core, but is one of the best players on the planet. And that second goal, which I'm sure everybody that's listening and watching has seen, was one of the goals of the tournament and will be one of the goals of the tournament. To score from that angle with such power, and for the goalkeeper to still be on his heels, he's hit it that hard, was a wonderful moment.
Yeah, and he's a good goalie.
Yeah, I mean, he's the reason that England weren't 3 or 4-1 up at half-time. So one thing I do think that, whilst lots of the coverage today, particularly on TalkSport, has been quite negative because it wasn't a particularly enamouring performance.
Well, Philip Ingram's a bit negative about it today.
But what I've got to say is there was much more invention, there was much more energy and pace, even when we went 1-0 down. Yes, it wasn't a classic. I can hear the people listening and watching saying, Max, what are you talking about? It was dreadful. But it wasn't as bad as Ghana, let's say. England traditionally
wasn't as flat.
No. Yeah. And England get better in tournaments. And with Thomas Tuchel at the helm, I think it's still possible. If you were to tell, appeal to my reason, not my heart, we would lose to France in a final, right?
I mean, yeah. Have you seen? I mean, have you watched any matches they've played this World Cup? Yes, of course.
Do you remember Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea beating Pep Guardiola's Manchester City in the Champions League final a few years ago? Nobody saw it coming. Yeah. He's got that in.
That's the thing. There is never anything that's a dead cert. Let's talk about our next match, because yesterday, I think one of the reasons that we could actually really get behind it yesterday was because it was actually at a time we could all watch and kids could watch, and and you weren't sort of going, what time do I have to stay up to? Please let there not be extra time. But the next one, 1 o'clock in the morning on Monday.
Yes.
So, it's not even like over the weekend or anything. Thomas Tuchel, the manager, has also saying, let kids stay up. I mean, I don't know how many will be able to stay awake for it. If we went to extra time, we were looking at getting to bed at 4 a.m, a time many of us have been used to getting up on the breakfast show. Do you think, can we just organise for the whole nation that we all just agree that we all get up at 6 a.m. and we watch it, and they don't broadcast it.
No spoilers.
No spoilers, nothing in the media, nothing. Don't look at social media, and we all just watch it as a nation at 6 a.m.
It's a great idea, but I think it's a bit pie in the sky, Julia, I'm afraid.
I can dream.
The big question for lots of fans is whether or not the government is going to grant extra, sort of relax the licensing laws. Now, I've been in contact with the Home Office this morning who say they are going to respond. They are going to tell TalkSport.
Come round mine, it's fine.
Well, I'm happy to do that. Big party at Julia's. That's the big question. But I think the biggest, the mammoth task at hand for England isn't really about whether fans are going to be able to watch in pubs. It's the altitude.
So it's going to be Mexico City.
7,220 metres altitude, 20% less oxygen. Yeah. There's a real conundrum for the FA because all sports science says if you want to perform at your highest at altitude like that, you need to spend 2 to 3 weeks acclimatising. We've not been able to do. Mexico have. The question is, they have altitude tents available, the England squad, but putting the England players who've just played their hearts out last night in an altitude tent, that's counterintuitive. They need the oxygen to recover well. So England, we understand, are likely to arrive on Friday because the first night sleep at such altitude is generally terrible. Yeah. And so they'll get that behind them and hopefully sleep well on Saturday as best as they can to perform on Sunday. That seems to be the plan.
Is the Azteca Stadium, and bearing in mind, they're going to be playing Mexico, who have been playing very well in this tournament, who are going to be playing to a home crowd. I mean, realistically...
Where they've only lost 2 of their last 89 competitive matches
all right,
at the Azteca.
All right, Max, love. We're having a nice morning. Why'd you have to ruin everything? It's the voice of doom. I've been at high altitude. I went trekking in Peru many years ago. And,
wow.
I mean, wow.
I've been to Machu Picchu.
Yeah, I mean, you are... I mean, you just feel faint. I mean, this is going to be hard. Are we going to have not just rehydration breaks, but little altitude
oxygen breaks
as well? Yeah.
Well, that'd be great, wouldn't it? And maybe we should petition FIFA. We should petition FIFA, and then it's more revenue for them in the oxygen break.
But no, but even just walking in high altitude is exhausting if you're not used to it. I mean, they tried to even everything up with their rehydration, but they've not evened everything up with all the matches being played in different countries at different altitudes.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Mexico are at an absolute advantage here, not only because they're playing at home, but because they're playing in an environment that they're accustomed to. But look, it's Mexico.
And with more fans.
But
that makes a difference.
If we want to just put our simple sort of match-going, pub-going fans' head on, it's only Mexico. Yeah, they've been playing well, but we're England and we've got world-class players and we should beat them regardless of the altitude.
They haven't got Harry Kane.
Exactly.
Just finally, in terms of Harry Kane's goals scoring, it's 5 now just at this World Cup. How many in total at World Cups? 18?
Yes, he's now leading Gary Lineker. I believe he's now on 13 World Cup goals. 13, he's scored 74 goals this season for club and country. Yeah. He has to be the Ballon d'Or winner. If he isn't awarded as the best player on the planet, then it is a shame. It's a crying shame and a disgrace to football, an insult to meritocracy in football.
Wow.
If he's not the Ballon d'Or winner.
Philip Ingram, tuppence worth from Mr. Northern Ireland here.
Well, he's paid enough money to be the best.
Oh, you're obsessed with this.
Come on.
Shouldn't people who are at the top of their game literally be paid a lot of money?
Well, it's up to the people that are the fans that are paying.
Well, yeah, well, they're quite happy to buy the shirts and pay for it.
Absolutely.
We're happy to watch
Give him another 100 million,
As I
Philip,
said,
if he
you
wins
want
us
to pay
the
him
World
£1 million
Cup.
every time he touches the ball. Yeah. We'll all come together for that one.
And at altitude, if I was getting paid £58,000 a day, I'd be altitude trained.
I am going to throw you out of this studio at this rate. Max, any chance you're free the next couple of hours? Because apparently Philip's got to go.
Yeah, if you carry on, Philip, I'll be in the hot seat, all right? I'll be taking that lovely jacket off you.
What are your thoughts on people, gang smugglers and unit? Start honing up. Yeah, well, thanks, Philip. It's been great having you. He may or may not be ever here again. We're going to go to a break. Big thanks. TalkSport reporter Max Scott, who may or may not be here after 11. Get to more of your calls as well. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and I have special dispensation allowed Philip Ingram to stay. I don't know why. Anyway, whether you are listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much for your company. If you've missed anything from the show, go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about these just extraordinary cases of people who are here who shouldn't be here, either grooming gang leaders who are about to be released from prison, but apparently we can't deport to Pakistan. Andy Burnham, not even Prime Minister yet, demanding that Home Office, Foreign Office, whoever it is, does whatever is necessary, whatever possible, to deport that grooming gang ringleader. Also, investigation at the BBC finding that a convicted people smuggler, once described as the godfather of the French migrant camps, making £100,000 a week at one point, putting people in the backs of lorries, is living and working illegally in Britain. For some reason, and no disrespect to the good folk of Leicester, he chose Leicester as the place to live. Foreign offenders, according to Shabana Mahmood's new immigration crackdown, though, will all face deportation, irrespective of the seriousness of their crime. That's what the new law is going to say. Absolute nonsense. There's a proviso in there, unless it has a big impact on a negative impact on the offender or the family. We ain't going to get rid of any of these people. Our government is not serious about this stuff. Plus, we're going to be talking about the secret dossier compiled by a former MI6 intelligence officer specialising in Russia, claims that Lord Manderson was considered a privileged contact by Russian intelligence, the KGB. Well, we'll talk about all of that and plenty more besides with Philip Ingram, who, for no good reason, is still in the studio. Philip Ingram, MBE, a former senior military intelligence officer, but not a big fan of the England team.
No, I support England in the
World.
I support England in the World Cup, and I even watched the game. No. I do not like football at all, and
he watches it for me and for you.
I lost 90 minutes of my life. Well, the last 20 minutes.
No,
was
with
quite
hydration
exciting.
breaks, it's an extra hour.
Yeah, the last 20 minutes was quite exciting, but then it was just people doing their job.
Come on.
Well, it was great to see the captain stepping up and showing the other strikers what they were supposed to have done, and they didn't, and none of them did it. So he had to show them what to do.
He does show what to do. Can I just ask about these local? He knows this desk is big, so I can't reach over and wallop him. They've got all these councils, like the obsessives. They got we want a Palestinian flag or a pride trans flag, but absolutely they're fine. Absolutely, people shouldn't put up their England flags or their Union flags because, of course, that's just horrible, bigoted, racist. But Cambridgeshire residents say restrictions on St George's and Union flags on lampposts are overkill. So there's Lib Dem Council, of course it is, in Cambridgeshire County Council. They said displays of patriotism were, quote, not appropriate, and that using ladders to put up the flags was reckless and could put lives at risk. This, by the way, even with a load of St George's flags going up, not just from the Raise the Colours movements, but for the World Cup. These people are mad.
Oh, they're completely mad. But you know what's even more mad? They've been voted in by the good people of Cambridgeshire.
Yeah, well, live with it. Live with it.
That's democracy at work. You vote for it. That's what you get.
Yeah, quite right. Look, let's talk about these gangs. It is extraordinary, and I do read the detail because it's important to know all the horrendous detail about these people, so we know exactly who we're talking about. We're not talking about shoplifters here. A Rochdale grooming gang ringleader known as Daddy. I mean, makes you want to throw up. That does. Shabir Ahmed, 73 years old. He is due to be freed from prison today, which is very bizarre because he was convicted in 2012 of 30 counts of rape and sexual offences against girls, one of whom at least was 12 years old. 50 victims of these gangs, it is thought, in total. And he was convicted of numerous sentences. One was 19 and one was 22. They were the longest. So for some bizarre reason, we in this country don't make you serve those consecutively. You serve them concurrently. So you serve them all at the same time. And for some reason, we don't make people serve their full sentences. So he's coming out today. Pretty sure, and again, let's do the maths, 2026 minus 2012. It's definitely not 22 years. But he's going to be released despite the fact that he's Pakistani born. He had dual nationality. He renounced his Pakistani nationality. I don't think we should allow him to do that. You came here from Pakistan, that's where you're from, full stop. We've taken away his British citizenship, so at least we've done that. But because of a ridiculous loophole in the Immigration Act of 1971, because he'd been in the country for a certain period of time before that act came in and before his deportation should be considered, his removal is barred. It's a stupid loophole. I don't know why it exists, but it does. And Andy Burnham, interestingly, is one of those who's actually stepped up as a future Prime Minister to say that ministers do everything possible to deport him. Like everyone, he tweeted last night, I want this vile criminal out of the country. Victims must come first. I will ask the Home and Foreign Secretaries to review all possible options, and they should consider nothing is off the table. I'd like to point out, though, 2 of his co-ringleaders in this Rochdale grooming gang of 9, they've also been stripped of their British citizenship, and they have also not been taken back by Pakistan, and we believe that they are still in the country as well. I mean, this keeps on happening. But as we were just discussing, could change the law. They could change.
Yeah, they could change it tomorrow.
I mean, I'll guess. Labour guest Mike Butley pointed out last summer MPs turned up on a Saturday to pass a law to save British steel. Yep. Well, let's save British girls, shall we?
It wouldn't take an awful lot of drafting to do it. It wouldn't take a huge amount of debate. And I suspect any Labour MP that tries to, or sorry, any MP that tries to vote against it would meet the wrath of the constituents.
Oh, I mean, they really, really should. I can't see any reason whatsoever not. And one of the victims, Ruby, she's previously spoken of the abuse, saying she's still getting failed by a broken system. She was 12 years old when it started. There's no support for victims, she says. She's been left feeling scared for her own safety. She says, this guy I met, well known in the Rochdale, Oldham and Middleton areas. She says, even if he's not in those areas, presumably when he's allowed out, he won't be, he still knows, yeah, I presume. Who knows? She says he still knows people, could contact them, which makes me feel unsafe. At the end of the trial, we were told they would all be deported once released, but not one of them has been deported. There are always false promises.
Yeah. And that sums it up perfectly. The government needs to step up. And it's good to hear Andy Burnham, because he's come under a lot of criticism for his approach to the grooming gang inquiries.
And basically dragging streaming to do, like, Keir Starmer, and then where there was a grooming gang inquiry, it was considered to be fairly half-hearted. Yep. And he didn't take action, and there were people who were identified. No action was taken, despite the fact, again, as a Metro mayor, he, like Sadiq Khan in London, who doesn't think grooming gangs have been a problem in London at all, he would have been able to direct the police to say, I think your resources should go into this. And again, everyone treats it like it's some historic thing. It's still going on now.
It is.
And it's not historic for the victims, who are sort of, some of them like, 25, trying to live their lives, knowing that the men who gang raped them and drugged them and abused them and beat them and tortured them when they were 12, 13, 14, 15 years old still walking the streets. Yeah, no, doing it to younger girls.
As you say, it's not historic to the victims. They're still suffering today, and therefore they should see some justice. And it is still ongoing. And what we have seen that's come out into the public domain is almost certainly just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. And then we've got the people smugglers. Again, this guy, I mean, this is called Twana. He's called Twana Jamal, although he's living here under a false name. He was given a 5-year jail sentence in France back in 2016. He's an Iraqi Kurd. He was described as one of the most successful people smugglers that they'd ever caught. He was called the Godfather in the French migrant camps. He was earning 100 grand a week at that time, just age 36, basically moving illegal migrants across the channel, mostly by lorry. That was the modus operandi. Still going on right now, by the way. We just focus on the boats. And then some point was let out of prison. Definitely didn't serve the full 5 years. And now he's in England. He's been identified in Leicester by a BBC investigative journalist, Sue Mitchell, who, I mean, I have to say, she's been doing some fantastic work on this. I mean, amazingly, BBC. But they basically managed to track this guy down. They've been told that actually, when he's living in a lovely house in a village nearby in Leicester, driving a BMW, no licence, owns a number of shops. Looks like he's basically taking his money and trying to. What they do, it's money laundering. You plough them into these stops, and then you have a massive big turnover, and then you basically clean up the money, don't you? And we've all watched The Wire. We know how this works. And he's apparently looking very, very rich. Well, they confronted him, and they're very, very sure it is this guy. And they've told the authorities, but authorities reckon there are at least 15, possibly 20 of these these, kingpins, these smuggling gang leaders, not just Mr. Bloke who pushes the dinghy out, the people who are making the serious money, living in this country right now. This is the thing. How do we not have any access to biometrics or anything? I mean, surely he gives a false ID. And then we go, oh, okay. Maybe he told them he was a schoolboy because they seem to do that. But I love the fact this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I said 8 to it. 6th paragraph. Immigration officers told the BBC that since the UK left the European Union, it has become more difficult to check criminal records from some other countries.
We owned most
Brexit's
of the
fault.
Yeah, we owned most of the EU criminal record databases and managed them on behalf.
So by the time we left in 2021,
we would
have had his records.
Yeah, of course we would have.
So we would have been able to check his records. So when Mr. Twana Jamal turns up and goes, "Oh, I'm an asylum seeker. I've just come from some awful war-torn place," they'd have gone, "Let's do your fingerprints," and then they'd have gone, "Oh, that's funny. You seem to be somebody who has been in prison for being a people smuggler in France." And then what do we do then? We throw him out, right?
Well, we should throw him out. But the other thing that you have to recognise here is those 15 people that have been identified as kingpins by the French, and they said that they're in the UK. Kingpins aren't just individuals who run who do everything themselves. Yeah. They've got massive criminal networks underneath them. So they've got an awful lot more henchmen that have probably brought across the channel that are in here that are part of organised crime groups. This is huge, and we need to be up in arms about it and get the government to deal with it.
It's not just people trafficking, it's child trafficking, it's sex trafficking,
it's drug trafficking,
it's gun trafficking, it's everything. It's almost like it's organised crime. I think you'll find, though, if you do check more closely, Philip, that we've smashed the gangs in the last 2 years.
Oh, so
did you
they're
not get that memo?
No, they're all brain surgeons. And engineers, yes. I missed that memo, sorry.
Sorry, I mean, can everyone please keep up and be a bit more supportive of Keir Starmer, please? Look, I think particularly the fact that Andy Burnham is demanding the government deport this Pakistani grooming gang ringleader that we were talking about earlier, due to be freed from prison today. The fact that the BBC is now doing pretty big reports on the scale of the madness of our lack of border security. I want to know your reaction towards that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls to charge the national rate. Text cost 1. Standard network rate message. But I do find it extraordinary. Shabana Mahmood, people keep saying as Home Secretary, she's a goodie. She's one of the good ones. Sorry, this is the madness of what they're bringing in. Immigration crackdown, we were told, published on Tuesday, the Immigration and Asylum Bill. And the court's going to be told there should be a presumption to deport, irrespective of the seriousness of the crime. So expanding removal orders beyond people committing a high-level crime. I mean, all foreign offenders should be considered for deportation for any offence, quote, unless the effect on the person or a member of their family would be disproportionate. Oh, I've got a 3-year-old who I'll never get to see if I'm deported to God knows where.
Who doesn't like Albanian chicken
doesn't
nuggets.
like chicken nuggets. I mean, once you've got that proviso in, no one... I mean, by definition, expelling someone from the country should have a disproportionate effect on your life. That's literally the point of it.
But this is where the Attorney General, oh, no, he's a human rights lawyer, could step in and put a very, very high bar for what is defined as disproportionate. And the government could easily make it virtually impossible for that disproportionate level to be applied in the law. It just takes a little bit of direction from...
I don't care how... I don't care. Yeah. I don't care. The point of it is supposed to be a punishment. And if you really, really care about being with your family... maybe don't commit serious crimes, or indeed any crime in this country. If you can't, I remonstrate with even the Uber delivery and delivery riders who are around my local supermarket who ride at high speed on those electrified massive. One of those bikes hit you, they're going to take you down and cause a serious injury. And we see people have been very seriously injured, even killed by them. And they're riding on a pavement. There's a load of primary schools nearby. They're doing it at high speed, even 8:30 in the morning when all the kids are there. Mums pushing buggies, elderly people, disabled, and they're out of control. And whenever, without exception, when I speak to them, and I do, you've met me, right? They all speak with a foreign accent, very straight. No, all of them. Again, we know the massive rate of illegal working in this field. I'd be surprised if most of them are legal or But I do actually say, don't come to my country and break the law. And even if the law is you don't ride your bike on the pavement, that includes that law. Let alone, the gang rape and the thieving.
And a lot of these e-bikes that they use are illegal. They're far too powerful. And again, you see people in different cities on these e-scooters. Those are illegal on the public roads as well because they're not properly insured unless they come from one of these hire companies.
But if I hit them in my car, I'm still to blame. Just checking. I don't aim at them. I'm just saying. I'm not quite sure how much I'm supposed to be giving people 2 metres leeway when they're on an illegal vehicle on the road.
You hit them, yes. They hit you, no. It's their fault. But then they're not insured and all the rest. And identifiable. And they'll just sue you anyway for being racist.
Just don't be on the road or on the pavement. Who knows? Maybe we should not run our entire country around having hordes of young people tearing around on uninsured, dangerous vehicles.
Yeah, but our police are more occupied chasing people for tweets rather than illegal vehicles.
I thought they were busy dealing with serious crime, like, people smuggling and gang rape. No, they're not doing that either. I digress. There's so much to talk about today. I think I get more angry when I've got a World Cup hangover. But I didn't think it was possible. This defence black hole, £5 billion not accounted for in the extra £15 billion uplift for defence spending. Turns out, according to when Downing Street asked to actually explain where the actual £10 billion they say is accounted for is from, they can't even account for that. £15 billion to find. Andy Burnham is going to have a little bit of a tough job with that first budget, isn't he?
Well, he is going to have a tough job, and hopefully his job is going to be made even tougher because, with any luck, your further defence ministers will turn around and say, actually, this isn't any real money. I can't, therefore, do what I'm being asked to do and protect this country.
You've lied to the public.
And you're asking me to lie to the public. I morally can't do that. And if the defence ministers don't do that, then the defence chiefs should turn around and say, you're not giving me the wherewithal to be able to prepare my force to deal with the threat that's out there. I cannot do it. You're going to have to get someone else in because I'm off.
We're just going to keep resigning. But they shouldn't be forced to do that, though. John Healey made the point. If John Healey said, we cannot keep our forces safe, let alone even keep our country safe, in his resignation speech. And it is bizarre. Dan Jarvis, who I certainly think is an honourable man.
Yeah, he is. I know Dan.
He's got an extra $1.5 billion. He hasn't. There is realistically no extra money. They've made it up. And again, I think this is an act of treachery by the Prime Minister. If he thinks this is his legacy, it's a very apt legacy. You're all smoke, no mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. Sorry. He's just a complete fraud, Keir Starmer. But we've got to find that money because we haven't got a choice. And especially when we're dealing with the stuff that's going on, like with Russia. Now, this expose from this secret dossier compiled by the former MI6 intelligence officer, this is Christopher Steele, he's the former head of MI6's Russia desk. He knows what he's talking about. He did that big dossier on Donald Trump, if we recall, that had a few choice claims about things that happened in the Moscow hotel rooms. Now, some of it, we're told, has been complete discountism, but he's now working, outside of MI6. But this dossier compiled by him claims that the likes of Peter Mandelson, Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings, who's chief advisor to Boris Johnson, of course, how could we forget him, Nigel Farage, Jeremy Corbyn, a whole range of people had been basically tracked and spied on by the Russians. I think we would expect that they would do, senior political figures and influential people. But they described Lord Mandelson as a privileged contact. Now, as a former senior military intelligence officer, you explained in the last hour as well, what do we mean by that?
Well, a privileged contact will be someone that they have got the ability to manipulate in some way or another, whether that be through rewards or through suggestions or because they're politically motivated to support, implant a thought and that will turn into some form of action. It's not saying that they're an agent, they're an asset, and therefore they're not under a level of control, but you can manipulate them to do stuff. And having read the reports around this, nothing in that surprised me.
No, but this was written in 2022, and of course, this was before Mandelson was appointed as our man in the United States. And Whitehall officials obviously will be now facing questions as part of the various probes going on about whether they knew about these allegations when Mandelson was appointed as ambassador 3 years later in 2025.
No, I will be completely gobsmacked if a lot of what's come out in the Mandelson investigation wasn't known about beforehand and will have had to have been put in front of the Prime Minister.
It's almost like he failed his security vetting. Which he did.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, various allegations being made against criminal investigations ongoing against Starmer. He's said that he's committed no wrongdoing. I must state that. But explain how do they? Okay, someone who's going to be influential. Why not? Get them in. We've seen films of Manchurian Candidate and stuff. So there are lots of different methods you can use to. There are people who they will literally blackmail and make them do stuff. There are people they will bribe. What people are focused on. Honey trap, or whatever it is. And what is the purpose of that? Is it to get them to do stuff to undermine the British state, do stuff, pass on information? What is it that what is it they're trying to get, or what are they trying to influence?
Well, there's so many different things that they're trying to do. With the likes of the position that Lord Mandelson would have been in advising policy decisions in the Labour Party that's coming up and all the rest of it, it would be to suggest that maybe that's a better option than that whenever it's going through, and that option is more favourable to what Russia would want to do in longer term. But it'll all be little things. It'll be tiny little things over long periods of time. Yeah. But they all add up to
and China does the same. China and Iran does the same.
And we try and do the same elsewhere. Oh God, we do. It's age old. It's the second oldest profession. The tactics and techniques and procedures are exactly the same wherever they are. Some are controlled. Ours are controlled very carefully. Some aren't controlled. The Russians and the Chinese.
Well, a caller earlier, Francis. I think it wasn't Francis. It was Peter. He was saying he doesn't understand why we worry about our defences, and why would Russia even bother using wasting a missile on us when they're completely able to undermine us any way they want by just entering the country illegally and staying here, or as we see with these sort of work. But also this other story: Vladimir Putin launched drones from his fleet of sanctioned oil tankers. These are the ones that are carrying out that oil around the world, which we're just doing nothing about, to spy on nuclear weapons in Britain. This is a claim from the International Institute for Strategic Studies. In a report, they say intelligence experts have claimed this, that drones exploited numerous gaps in NATO air defences during a sustained 15-month campaign by the Kremlin. Among them was RAF Lakenheath, a US base in Suffolk that's preparing to host nuclear bombs. Back in 24, drones breached its airspace, along with 3 other US sites. A sanctioned Russian tanker docked in Hull at the time has since been blamed for launching the drones. Bases across Europe also spied upon. And during one incident, drones were seen deploying from a Russian spy ship before flying towards a French aircraft carrier, according to the report. What are we doing about this?
Well, not a lot, not enough. We need the Defence Investment Plan to be able to allow us to do it. And if we look at that, there are lots of reports of the drones flying not just over our nuclear weapon sites, but over nuclear power plants, our critical national infrastructure. Now,
and of course, they've been monitoring under the water.
Correct. Everyone talks of the Russians using a ballistic missile against us. Go, oh, that'll never happen. All the rest of it. If those drones had the warheads on that, the drones that are used in the Ukraine-Russian war have and flying in, they can do that. They don't need to fire a missile. The drones are already penetrating. And this was part of the game. It's checking to see what our response would be.
We understand that Putin wants to reclaim Ukraine, wants to reclaim the Baltics. Probably Putin. I mean, it's not even just reclaiming the Soviet Union. It's the Russian Empire. That's he wants to go back to almost the Tsar's times. But where do we fit in there?
Well, we fit in there because we're permanent member of the Security Council of the United Nations. We're the 6th largest economy in the globe. We are a centre of financial excellence in the world through the City of London. We're not in Russia's good books. We're Five Eyes member. We're a member of NATO, and we're influential with the EU.
We're important now.
And therefore we're a focus. But these drones were also hitting Denmark, Germany, Sweden,
and all the rest.
For the
purpose of what? So if you undermine us, it's not about invading us. It's us. It's just the fact that we then will be less able to protect our allies.
Yeah. Two purposes of the drones coming in. One is to test our intelligence gather capability, to test whether we can detect them,
and our resolve and response,
and detect our test our response. So it's intelligence gathering. The second thing is to send a message to say, hey, look, we can get in there.
But why would they want us to know that?
Because it's stirring the pot. It's like me in my World Cup commentary to you. I stir the pot. Vladimir Putin does exactly the same. He just doesn't use the World Cup. He's using drones and threats of explosives and all the rest of it.
Basically got the KGB in here. That's what he's saying. Let's talk about Andy Burnham. Let's talk about Andy Burnham. Voters fear. Well, most voters in this poll for YouGov don't know answer, which I think is probably the right answer. 27% of voters say they fear he's going to govern in the interests of the North, and only 23% say in the interests of the whole country. All this focus on the North, which is I can understand. I mean, previously all Labour leaders have focused on the North London constituency of Islington. So I suppose that's a good thing. I mean, I've got no issue with more focus on our great northern cities and the Midlands and parts of the country that have been left behind. London's doing okay. You know, we're doing okay. All transport links, all, you know, the jobs, the city money and everything. But a bit more focus there. But it doesn't have to be an either or, does it?
No, it doesn't have to be an either or. It should be all-inclusive. But then Keir Starmer hasn't been all-inclusive both in his approach to governing what England needs, but also governing the United Kingdom. You look at Prime Minister's questions, and I measured it over a 6-month period. There were probably 4 questions on the other parts of the United Kingdom that he answered, and policies he brought out, as opposed to those from the totality. The one thing I disagree with is this number 10 of the North that he's opening up, because that's just a vanity project to allow him to work from home in Manchester.
It's going to cost us millions. Fortune. Yeah, I mean, it's just madness. And I don't want, I mean, was he going to helicopter? I don't want government on the Avanti-West Coast main line. Sorry, I really don't.
Well, he'll just not get to London if he does that.
Also, have you checked the Wi-Fi out on that train?
It doesn't work. I do. I check it out every time I come up and down. It doesn't work.
Exactly. 11:27 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts on all of these stories, anything and everything, anything you want to talk about, get in touch. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. If you want to have a go at him about the football, feel free as well. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. Let's get straight to your calls and messages coming in on the... I mean, just trying to deport... Is it that much to ask? Let's try and deport some gang rapists. Does that seem unreasonable? It doesn't to me. Let's go to Scott, who's in Essex. Hello, Scott. Thank you for your call. What do you want to say, my darling?
Hello, Julia.
Hello.
It's just the sheer hypocrisy of the situation.
Yeah.
Labour saying that they can deport this person.
Yeah.
Who was the people that were preventing the Conservatives when they were in power from deporting people with screams of racism and the German N-word and the Italian F-word?
Yeah.
And they would block every opportunity. But now they're in power. They've seen the light. The Conservatives are the only consistent ones that said these people shouldn't be here, and for the safety of our children, let's get rid of them.
Except they didn't get rid of them.
I know, because most of the time they couldn't, because any time they tried, we heard racism, man.
Well, no one shouting racist at you as a government stops you from getting anything done if you really want to. They could have acted. Okay, Kemi Badenoch wasn't the leader. I think she would have acted. She gets it. But they could have acted. They could have left the ECH up. They could have done lots of things. They had enough votes in Parliament. They could have done it. They chose not to do it.
But then you've also got the other departments. Whitehall's been blocking us from deporting people. Our legal system has been blocking.
Yep.
Media will immediately come down on the neck of anyone who dares have an opinion that they don't consent to.
Yeah.
So it's literally across the board.
I don't think it works anymore, though. I think the fact that you get the BBC doing these reports, the fact that this is now, this is just above the parapet. It's not a few people discussing it on some dodgy forum on the internet. This is all over the place. It's all out there. Everyone can see the figures. We know how much it costs. We know we can't afford it. We know the damage these people are doing. We know the criminality rate. People are talking about it openly, and it doesn't matter how many times you shout racist or fascist or bigot at these people. People like me, we don't care anymore. You can say what you think. We know we're in the right.
How long until people start wearing the word racist as a badge of honour?
Well, that would be appalling.
To say, I can see the problem and I'm willing to deal with the problem, and they're going to say, right, you can call me racist, but that's only because I'm protecting my homeland.
But again, I don't think it's got anything to do with race. It's about culture. It's nothing. There's nothing in the pigmentation of anyone's skin of any colour that makes them commit crimes. Culture, however, background, attitudes, the method in which they arrive in the country, that does have an impact. But the colour of people's skin doesn't. That's why, when they want to shout racist, it's a way of shutting people down. It's not actually addressing the actual issue. Scott, great call. Thank you so much. A couple of your texts and tweets going. Barry says about this Pakistani grooming gang ringleader, of course he should be deported. It should take precedence over the gangs. Perhaps act as a deterrent to discourage any further crimes. There is no deterrence that is going to stop gang rapists or indeed, any of this other stuff. They're going to do it. You can't deter it. You can't stop them. You can't stop them from wanting to do it. Other than that, they're not in the country or they're behind bars. Karen says, I'll take anything at the moment. Too little, too late, says Peter. They won't they won't deport this guy, says David. He'll be free having paid his debt to society. Not good enough, says Angela, unless it's in a box. Couldn't agree with you more. Good, says Gary, that Andy Burnham is demanding deportation, but we all know it's performative outrage. Quite right too. Right now, on a more cheerful note, you of course know we've got that exciting news from our friends at talkSPORT with the World Cup well underway now. talkSPORT and Meantime have teamed up to create a lager. It's called So Good Lager, which will be poured from all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. You can find your nearest pub by visiting talksport.com/so good. 18 plus, of course. Please drink responsibly. I wish I'd done that last night. I'd feel better today. Meanwhile, as you know, with the 2026 World Cup in full swing, here at Talk we are celebrating in style with you. We're giving you the chance to boost your bank balance with a massive £26,000 in tax-free cash. So, for a summer you won't forget, here's how to enter.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 8338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 8338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Sir Bill Browder, Putin's #1 foreign enemy, about Russia spying on some of our most leading, well-known politicians. First up, though, let's talk to David Shipley. He's an investigative journalist and a former prisoner himself about, well, some of these extraordinary stories we've been talking about today, about including grooming gang bosses and the like. Good morning to you, David.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us. Before we get into that, just some breaking news that's just come in the last couple of moments. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, very much in the news at the moment. She has told Parliament that the government has accepted all the recommendations for change made by an inquiry into the Southport killings, which found that they could have been prevented and had identified fundamental failings. Now, that Southport inquiry was published in April. And, of course, it looked into the circumstances leading to Axel Ruda-Cabana killing 3 young girls, injuring 8 other children and 2 adults. And it identified 5 fundamental systemic failures and parental shortcomings. So the absence of risk ownership, people, no single agency or indeed person was responsible for anything. Critical failures in sharing information about this young man having knives and the like, misattribution of autism, limited oversight of what he was doing online, and as I say, crucially also significant parent failures. I mean, if they had stopped him getting in that cab, first time he'd left the house in many months, those children would still be alive right now enjoying a lovely summer. What do you make of that agreement to accept all the recommendations? What will that actually mean in practice?
Well, I think they had to. I think the issue for me, though, is that the Southport inquiry didn't focus on some other key problems which actually were found during the inquiry.
Yeah.
So the manner in which police were just incredibly soft touch.
Yeah.
There was an incident at one point where Ruda-Cabana was threatening to go to his old school and kill a former pupil. Yeah. He'd made a plan, and police came around to his house to interview him. He explained his plan, and they said, actually, we're going to have to arrest you because this sounds like you're planning to murder someone. And at that point, Ruda-Cabana backed down and changed his story. And they said, OK, well, we're just going to let you off with a warning then. Yeah. Another occasion where they found him on a bus with a knife.
Wasn't he found about 6 times with a knife?
This was sort of right at the end. So he was found on a bus with a knife, and he told them that he didn't like something that had been written about on social media. He was going to go and do violence to get that sorted. And he told them he was making poison. And instead of arresting him, they just drove him home to his parents. And actually, at that point, he was already manufacturing rice or attempting to manufacture rice at home. And again, there was this unwillingness, I think, partly because of this notion of autism, partly because, and we heard this phrase in the inquiry, this fear of stigmatising a black boy with a knife.
There we go again.
That meant that these horrific crimes were likely to happen. We're far too soft on some of these things, really, I think.
I mean, do you think? I mean, this is the thing. It is extraordinary. But whenever I hear they're going to accept recommendations, you think, well, yes, what are you actually going to do about it, though? What are you actually going to do? And I don't think it's going to be very much. Look, let's talk about also these cases. And my audience, if you'd been listening for most of the show, you'll have heard me say this so many times, and apologies, but for those who've just tuned in, we do have the extraordinary situation where we've got the about to come in Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, basically demanding that the government does something to deport this grooming gang ringleader, Shabir Ahmed, a 73-year-old, sentenced for being a ringleader in one of the Rochdale gangs, 30 different cases of rape against and sexual offences against girls as young as 12. He was jailed, served a fraction of his sentence, as they always do, and he's going to be out of prison today. That is the due date. But he's supposed to be deported. He's basically given up his Pakistani nationality. We've taken away his British nationality. Oh, and now we're in no man's land because under some stupid loophole in the Immigration Act, 1971, he can't be deported. Andy Burnham's saying they need to do whatever is necessary. Surely whatever is necessary is change the law tomorrow and boot him.
Well, this is exactly, we often act as if the law is geography or weather, just something we have to adapt to and deal with. But laws are just a set of tools. And, we have a parliamentary system where Parliament can change the law tomorrow. It could even Parliament could write and enact law, the Deportation of Shabir Ahmed Act 2026.
Yeah.
If it wanted, we could write an act saying the Execution of Shabir Ahmed Act 2026.
Might there be a human rights challenge?
Well, no, you could. Primary legislation can simply say that no other laws apply to it. So Parliament can't bind itself in future legislation. So properly drafted law in Parliament can do whatever we wish it to do. And that is one of the beauties of our system. So the only reason I think fundamentally is we have learned helplessness. There was your caller before talking about all these things that stop us doing stuff. They don't. All it takes
it's a choice.
It's Parliament that has the will to act. And, Burnham's come out and made these comments. I think fundamentally, if he wants to show that he is different to the government of lawyers that is now departing the scene, he's going to have to come in and do primary legislation.
It is funny, as you make a point there, government of lawyers, you'd think they'd be really good at drafting legislation. But also, who thought it was a good idea to have this mad loophole that, but if you've been in the country for at least 5 years before deportation is considered, your removal is barred? The whole point of removing people because if they've committed a crime is that you can get rid of people who committed crimes. I don't care whether they've been here for 99 years. Bye. Well, thanks for coming.
Well, I think frankly, the whole thing is awful. And this guy was convicted of 30 counts.
Yeah, that's just the convictions. There'd be thousands.
Yeah, I'm sure. But he has spent effectively under 6 months in jail for each of those offences that he was convicted of. So that's clearly not an appropriate. I think my view on this is that the reasonable response to child rapists is to convict them and then hang them. But alternatively lock him up for the rest of his life. But I don't think we should be releasing this man anyway.
No, I don't. And I don't know anyone who does think that, other than the chunky jewellery lanyard brigade in Islington, who seem to think these people can be rehabilitated. And if they do genuinely think that, they should absolutely have people like him as lodgers in their homes and perhaps let them babysit their children. There you go. You think he's fine? You have him. Not a problem. You have him.
Not quite.
I mean, that to me is always... Every probation officer, every parole officer, seriously, would you have this guy babysit your children? If you wouldn't, then he shouldn't be out on the streets, because that is just how simple the calculation has to be. And then we've got this people smuggler, the BBC have identified, convicted in France, served whatever he served over a 5-year sentence. I'm sure they're as mad as us on these sentencing. This is Twana Jamal. He's now living, for some good reason, best known to himself, in Leicester, having earned 100 grand a week, being one of the most successful people smugglers. Apparently, he came here, we think, under a false name, claiming asylum here, working illegally, driving a car without a licence, you name it, racking up the cash, clearly money laundering. Reckons he's not... The police and the authorities reckon 15 to 20 of these people are in the country. And for some bizarre reason, we're unable to identify who this guy is, even allowing for the fact that the BBC claims it's more difficult to check criminal records from some other countries since we left the EU. I find that rather hard to believe.
I mean, it all just shows how dangerous it is to have the open borders we have. Functionally, our borders are open, and functionally, people can just arrive here. We haven't got a clue who they are, and they may or may not have been convicted of things elsewhere. But we're never going to be able to establish that to any good level of accuracy, because they're probably going to turn up without documents. They all throw the documents away and giving a false name. So the only sensible way to deal with this level of risk is just to stop letting people in. And if people enter the country illegally, we detain them immediately and we deport them as soon as we can. That's the way to solve this. I think
we should get nightclub bouncers to be in charge of our border security. They've got very simple rules, like big group of blokes, big group of women, Hindus, could be, you're not allowed in. You're a high risk. You dress a certain way, bit drunk, you're not allowed in. They have a kind of a no-risk approach. It seems to work for most nightclubs.
Yeah, I think, and this is it fundamentally, our justice system, our borders, all of these things should be constructed around keeping the people of this country safe.
That should be, I think, the only consideration.
Yeah, I think so. And on that basis, we would not have an asylum system in the way we do. We would maybe allow very few genuine political refugees to be allowed to stay. Perhaps with Parliament having to vote individually on each case. It'd be that sort of level. The system we currently have is just importing very, very many, mostly men, who are often very likely to be criminal, who are always going to be a financial burden on us. So it's making us less safe and poorer. And it's stupid. It has to end.
Well, indeed, again, the new stats today, of course, showing that most migrants granted the right to stay under ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights, are unemployed. Every asylum claim is costing taxpayers more than almost £19,000, £1.7 billion total Home Office bill for all the asylum claims. I mean, these people are costing us a fortune, and you know, getting legal aid and the like, you know, in a way that, you know, if you're going through a difficult financial situation yourself, you know, in the courts or something, you know, you're not getting that help. It is just extraordinary, the amount of money that bizarrely can be found for these things, but not for, I don't know, improving the barracks for our soldiers and spending money on useful things like bullets to defend our country.
Yeah, quite. And I think it's, you know, we've created this cage of laws, which now we insist we have to abide by. We've got these obligations. We have to house these people. We have to feed them. We have to do this. We don't. We can just change laws. Laws are tools, and if they know
France doesn't do all this. That's why they don't stay in France, funnily enough.
Well, and also, actually, some asylum seekers here have fought deportation to France on the basis that it would be a breach of their human rights because France won't give them a house to live in.
Don't. I'm going to cry. Yeah. I'm going to cry. It's so painful, isn't it? Look, on a happier note, let's talk about, you know, she said, I'm joking, of course. Court of Appeal yesterday has been hearing this case of these 3 boys, traveller boys, convicted of rape against 2 teenage girls. And this is the Fordingbridge case in Hampshire. And they've heard that the judge was wrong to pass community sentences on the 3 boys. At the time of the offences, the girls were 15 and 14. The 3 boys were 14 and 13. They were convicted of 10 rape offences between them. Interestingly, we've been told again and again there was a knife used in one of them. Apparently not. This has now come out. Apparently it was the Crown Prosecution Service who had inaccurately put that out. You'd think you could trust the Crown Prosecution Service, wouldn't you? But they basically saying that the argument is being made on both sides, and we're going to hear the result of that decision to 2 o'clock today about whether or not their sentences, not a single day behind bars, was unduly lenient. I simply can't see how anyone could think it wasn't unduly lenient when the judge said he didn't want to unnecessarily basically sort of criminalise these boys when they'd committed rape.
Yes, and on 2 occasions we had this terrible thing in our sentencing system where qualities which make someone more of a risk, more of a threat, are actually reasons in our system to reduce their sentence. So if you are highly impulsive, if you have mental health issues, if you don't really understand what you did was wrong, if you are young when you start your offending, all of those things actually mean that someone is more likely to commit more and worse crimes over their life. But we treat them all as being reasons to have a shorter sentence because our sentencing system is concerned with the sort of the moral culpability of the offender, not keeping the public safe. It's again that same thing. We should build a justice system which protects the public, and on that basis, you know, to start sexual offending at such a young age is often linked with something called antisocial personality disorder.
And the argument the judge gave at the time was that because this guy has such a low IQ, I mean, literally very bottom end, he doesn't have an understanding of consent. Well, I would say that makes him a little bit more dangerous rather than less dangerous. David, it's always good to come. We've covered a lot of ground. Thank you so much. David Shipley, investigative journalist, thank you so much. Going to take a quick break. Up next, going to be talking to Putin's #1 foreign enemy, Sir Bill Browder, about why is Russia spying on our leading politicians? This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 11:53 is time. Let's get straight to my next guest, Sybil Browder. He's Putin's #1 foreign enemy, fine claim to fame, and head of the global Magnitsky Justice Campaign. A very good morning to you, Sybil.
Great to see you.
Thank you for joining us. Apologies for coming to you a little bit late. So much to talk about what's going on here, but I want to get your thoughts on what has also been going on here in terms of Russian involvement. Russian spies have been looking at the likes of Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings, his former chief of staff, Nigel Farage, Jeremy Corbyn, and indeed Lord Manderson, we understand, over the years, and a secret dossier compiled by the former head of MI6's Russia desk, Christopher Steele, has been leaked. Compiled in 2022, claims that Russian authorities considered him a privileged contact. What does that mean, and how worried should we be, Sybil?
Well, I mean, first of all, this Peter Mandelson is like a bad penny. He sort of just pops in every different scandal. The Jeffrey Epstein scandal. He was close to Oleg Deripaska, the sanctioned Russian oligarch, and of course now we read about this. Basically, he was a bad guy, Peter Mandelson. He was hanging around with Russians, on the board of Russian companies, taking favors, going on their yachts, doing them favors. And so, of course, the Russians are going to say, okay, here we got this guy who's an influential guy. He was a minister in the European Union when the UK was a member of the European Union. He was an ambassador. He was a member of the House of Lords. And he was hugely sympathetic. So, I mean, I don't know what he might have been thinking, but I sure know what the Russians were thinking, which is this guy is a great guy for us, and maybe we can get stuff from him, maybe we can guide him in our direction. God knows what they were thinking, but God, this guy shows up every bad place. Seems like.
Well, indeed. I mean, he does. I mean, again, one wonders, I mean, given this report was done in 2022, OK, since Christopher Steele had left MI6, but nevertheless, Whitehall officials will face yet more questions about, did you know about this, any of this, when you appointed him as, or allowed him to be appointed as ambassador 3 years later in 2025? Lots was coming out. Of course, he's facing criminal investigation over alleged activities when he was in the Gordon Brown government as a cabinet minister, and he's denied any wrongdoing there, and I'm sure he would deny any wrongdoing here. And the dossier doesn't sort of say, you know, he's spying for Britain or anything like that, and, you know, that would be untrue as far as you're aware. But it does suggest that, yeah, he was considered in some way useful to the Russians. But, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn, I mean, you could understand, you know, socialist, yeah, OK, he might be. Is this just the way that Russia does business, which is you identify people who you think might be amenable, persuadable, too foolish or too interested in money and power to stand up? And how does it work?
Well, so there's two types of people. I mean, you use the word useful. There's a second word that goes on to that, a useful idiot. And
We've got lots of them here.
And then there are the people who are fully compromised, and we can't allege that he was fully compromised or Jeremy Corbyn. But if you look at Jeremy Corbyn's statements, he was downplaying the whole Skripal thing.
The Salisbury attack, yeah.
He was saying that you know, we shouldn't be supplying weapons to Ukraine and all sorts of other stuff like that. And so he might have just been sympathetic to the same issues that they feel like, and you know, if they can bolster his positions that are their positions, that's all the better. Yeah. And you know, with Nigel Farage, he wanted to break up the European Union.
That's in Russia's interest, yeah.
Russia wanted to break up the European Union. Why did Russia want to break up the European Union? Because they don't like to have big blocs standing against them. They prefer to have individual countries they can pick off.
But that doesn't necessarily mean someone is working with the Russians or colluding with them. They may have no contact with them whatsoever, but they're being supported, whether it's, what is it, online funding of organisations that support them? How does it work?
Well, in every possible way. So you have, of course, this, you know, the troll factories. That whole concept was invented in Russia. They called it the St. Petersburg troll factory, where, you know, when, like, if you said anything nice about me on X or Twitter, you'd find like 1,000 people saying, "Oh my God, Bill Browder is the worst guy in the world." Where does that come from? It comes from some guy sitting in a room with a bunch of computers pressing a button. St. Petersburg Troll Factory, so that they help with that. They also help with different civil society organizations. So the Russians. Didn't want they want to sell their gas to Germany. What do? They like support all this anti-nuclear stuff so that Germany doesn't have nuclear stuff to make energy. They need gas to make energy. And so Russia's out there. They're very clever. I mean, one has to hand it to them. It doesn't take a lot of money to support these things. Much less money than the war that they're fighting in Ukraine. And they can succeed in all sorts of great ways. And so the Brexit thing, they certainly wanted Brexit to happen, and the other people wanted Brexit to happen for different reasons. And so they got involved in making sure that the people who wanted Brexit to happen got full support, whether that's online or whether that's in funding of organizations, whether supporting individuals. Whether there were anybody colluding with Russia, we don't know, but we certainly know that Russia wanted Brexit to happen, and they're very happy. They've got like
doesn't make it a reason why we shouldn't have done it. I'd like to point out, but it's very subtle, and it's going on behind the scenes. And again, I'm sure it's also impacting, for instance, along with China as well, our energy policy here. As you said, same in Germany. It's a very clever effect. I mean, and as I say, we got plenty of useful idiots for them. I just hope we're doing the same thing back. Sir Bill Browder, great to get your insights on that. Putin's number one foreign enemy. I'm going to get Philip Ingram's thoughts on that again, because there's no point having a former senior military intelligence officer in the room without talking to him about that. Up next, also, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. 2 minutes past midday is the time, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device. Thank you very much for joining me. I imagine a lot of you will be feeling as rough as I do today after last night's match. Got to be celebrating that, because we don't know how things are going to go in Mexico City on Monday morning, do we? We're going to be talking more about this Pakistani grooming gang ringleader, due to be freed from prison today. Can't deport him because of our mad laws. Andy Burnham, the about to be Prime Minister, is saying, look, he wants ministers to do everything possible to deport this man. Also, convicted people smuggler, convicted in France, earning 100 grand a week, decides for some reason to rock up into Leicester, living here illegally, claiming asylum. Yeah, so we're paying for him, I kid you not, while he drives around in his unlicensed BMW. What a surprise, he's not the only one. Let's also talk about that England match last night and what's going to happen in the early hours of Monday morning in Mexico City. All that coming up. Delighted to say, still joining me, despite his comments about the England team last night. Very much in spite of it. Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I was supporting the England team.
He wasn't really.
I was. Definitely supporting them. But they did their job.
Stop it.
Eventually.
Stop it. I'm not having it. Not having it today. Not with this hangover. I'm not. Anyway, look, in just a couple of moments, going to talk to Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, but I do want to give you a chance to come back. We talked earlier about these claims that, you know, as the Bill Browder says, you know, Peter Mandelson, he just keeps coming up. Yeah. I mean, just keeps any story. Oh, it's Peter Mandelson. This 2022 report, Russian spies considered Mandelson a privileged contact. They were looking at people like Boris Johnson, Dom Cummings, Nigel Farage, Jeremy Corbyn. Sure, there'd be many others. Those are just the names we'll know. But that he was considered somebody who was certainly significant. One of the most significant Russian intelligence services achievements in manipulating UK politics over the past 30 years, according to this report by the former head of MI6's Russia desk, Christopher Steele.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sir Bill was exactly right, and a lot of it is about manipulation, and he was trying to bring that out, manipulation in the information sphere. And at the end of intelligence reports where you've met someone new, you very often put a line in to say you have to be aware that this individual may be trying to influence as much as inform. Yeah. And this is what the intelligence agencies will be trying to do: recruit people that can influence, that can also inform them, and that could potentially work for them. But it doesn't matter, provided you can get some of that done, and that seems to be what they're suggesting they may have been doing with Peter Mandelson.
Now, Peter Mandelson would deny any wrongdoing. We're not saying he was a spy. No. We're not, you know, he's already been facing criminal investigation in a number of different fronts. Again, he's denied any wrongdoing there. But people like him, others, would be considered because... Is it because of the high level that they are at? Is it because of their kind of... Is it because of... It would be... everyone... I mean, look, one of the reasons why when Peter Mandelson was appointed, I said it was an inappropriate appointment, in 2025 when he was... Sorry, 2024, I think. No, it was 2025, wasn't he? He was appointed. It's all gone very quickly, hasn't it? But no, it was 2024. Anyway, but he started the job in early 2025. But he was inappropriate because this was a man who was obsessed with money and power, and he was dangerous. People who chase that much money, who go on a Russian oligarch's yacht, who even when he was a European commissioner, and they've got big some investigations by the European Commission, into some steel tariffs and things, and this was a steel magnate. Look, there were question marks about him for years. Yeah.
If you're running someone as an agent, you have control over them. There's nothing to suggest here that the Russians or anyone else had control over Peter Mandelson. But the best way and the most rewarding way to run someone from an influential perspective is they don't realise they're being manipulated. Yeah. You groom them, you manipulate them, you get them to do stuff for you subtly. And that seems to be what has been suggested in the wording of what's come out in this report.
OK, very interesting. Thank you very much. Love to hear your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. If you want to get in touch also about all the big crime stories and the grooming gangs, the people smugglers, just why all these people are in our country? Why were they allowed in our country? Why were they out of prison once they've been convicted of a crime? And why can't we deport them? Andy Burnham is demanding the government deports the Pakistani grooming gang ringleader, due to be freed from prison today. But what is going to be done to get rid of him? What's your reaction to that? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. And also get in touch at talkTV. Calls are charged the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Right, well, let's go to my next guest. Live from College Green is Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, former Conservative Government Minister. A very good afternoon to you, Sir Jacob.
Hello. Good afternoon, good morning. Very nice to be with you today.
I love that you're not quite sure whether it's afternoon or morning. I must ask you, first of all, have you ever been...
I tend to say afternoon after I've had lunch, and I haven't had lunch.
I mean, we've got to have rules.
Rather than at midday. Anyway.
We have to have rules on these things, don't we?
Of course we have.
Thank you.
Most important, yes.
I've had my etiquette lesson for the day. Done. Can I ask you, Sir Jacob, ever been approached by KGB spies to try and influence you?
I don't think so.
Would you know?
I suppose if they were any good at spies, I wouldn't have noticed. But nobody came up to me called Vladimir and said, would I like to pass on some secrets? And I've never been asked to drop things off in telephone boxes and things like that.
OK, well, I'm just wondering on that. Look, let's talk about serious stuff. Let's talk about, Andy Burnham would be about to be Prime Minister, getting involved in a tweet yesterday. He posted on X, demanding that ministers do everything possible to deport a Pakistani grooming gang ringleader due to be freed from prison today, Shabir Ahmed. He's part of the Rochdale gang, known as repulsively as the Daddy. I mean, he's got dual British-Pakistani citizenship. He renounced his Pakistani citizenship, what a surprise, stripped of his British citizenship following his conviction in 2012 for 30 separate counts of rape and sexual offences against girls, including one as young as 12 years old. That will be the tip of the iceberg of the number of crimes he did commit, of course. But for some bizarre reason, despite you lot having been in charge for a lot of years, someone who gets sentenced to 22 years behind bars in 2012 is coming out today. We can't deport him because of a stupid loophole in the Immigration Act. What should be done to get rid of this guy?
Well, if it's in primary legislation, which I think it is, the only way to overcome the problem is to change the primary legislation. I think it's the 1971 Immigration Act that meant that people from the Commonwealth from 1973 couldn't be deported. And this is clearly a mistake, because in 1973 our relationship with the Commonwealth was very different. The empire had only just come to an end. Now we're over 50 years on, and that relationship is a different one. And so I think we need to have primary legislation to deal with this. And this man also gained British citizenship. He wasn't born a British citizen, he gained it. And I think that puts him in a different position from other people who were born with British citizenship, who we've tried to take it away from.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, in terms of changing the legislation, again, very easy to do that. Last summer, MPs all met on a Saturday to bring in a law to allow British steel to be saved. I mean, let's save British white working class 12-year-old girls. That would seem a top priority for us, should it not? They could change the law in a day if they wanted, couldn't they?
You're absolutely right that when necessary, Parliament can move very rapidly, and emergency legislation has been passed on many occasions. But I think you'd run into the blockage of the Attorney General. I think Lord Hermer would start saying, what about his human rights? Yeah. And so we've got to deal with the Human Rights Act as well, and our membership of the European Convention on Human Rights, because I bet that he would be wheeling that out to try and stay here, and therefore he wouldn't be on a plane to Pakistan tomorrow, or immediately after legislation was passed. There would be years of litigation. So you need to pass it and say, notwithstanding the Human Rights Act, notwithstanding the European Convention, he's out.
It took a long time for your party sort of be dragged kicking and screaming to the point of realising you have to leave the ECHR if you want to get anything done. It appears, that perhaps even the Labour Party might at some point wake up to that this is a problem and you cannot protect particularly women and girls in this country if we are still in the ECHR. Do you think that there is a slow dawning realisation across the political spectrum, apart from the completely lunatic far left, that this is just something that has to be done?
It's a very difficult question to know the answer to. I think the Labour Party is very committed to the Human Rights Act and that architecture of international law. They believe in internationalism as part of the foundational beliefs of the Labour Party. Yeah. So although the right has now come to this conclusion very clearly, I'm not sure even people like Shabana Mahmood have come to that conclusion, let alone the breadth of the Labour Party. I think they notice that it makes their life difficult, but they haven't taken that to the next step and realised that actually these loony judges in Strasbourg, with their bizarre interpretations of the law, have made sensible governing very difficult and are putting people at risk. They're putting people at risk.
You don't even have to go
criminals.
to Strasbourg. I mean, our own judges and our own asylum tribunals and our own courts are included in the way that the Human Rights Act has been, and the ECHR has been basically embodied into our own law under the Human Rights Act. And they're part of the problem.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think there's been a leftward tilt of the judiciary since Tony Blair got rid of the Judicial Committee of the House of Lords, put it into the Supreme Court, and set up an appointments process that seems to appoint mates of the judges. I think we've got a very unsatisfactory way of appointing judges that appoints blob characters. I'm not meaning that they're fat, but they are part of the establishment blob.
And signed up to DEI and all of that. But it's interesting, the Home Office under Shabana Mahmood, they've announced an immigration crackdown, interestingly. They want to expand removal orders beyond just those who've committed high-level crimes. So the court should be told that it is, the default position is that if you've committed a crime, you're deported if you're a foreigner. But what extraordinary, there's absolutely extraordinary, under this bill published on Tuesday, courts will be told there should be a presumption to deport, quote, unless the effect on the person or a member of their family would be disproportionate. That clearly leaves us wide open to, oh, well, I've got a 3-year-old that I wouldn't be able to see if I was back in Afghanistan or Iraq. My son, as that famous case, my son doesn't like Albanian chicken nuggets, so I can't leave him, and I don't want to be apart from him, and he can't come to Albania. This is just a mockery, isn't it?
It's all absolute nonsense. If you think putting somebody in prison affects their right to a family life, when they're locked up, they're not seeing their wife and their children. Sending them abroad is exactly the same. It's the punishment for the crime, and crime deserves to be punished. So this private life, family life, human rights view is utter nonsense, and it's judge-made law. Parliament never intended this to be the case, and so we just need to change the law so that it can't happen.
What do you make of this story? It has been leading the BBC and the website, news, TV and radio today, and it's a report by Sue Mitchell and Ben Milne, but I think Sue Mitchell has been the lead front of this. I mean, really good investigation. But basically finding a convicted people smuggler known as, one of the godfather in the French camps. He was busy getting 100 grand in a week, sending people in the backs of lorries over to England. Twana Jamal was given a 5-year jail sentence in France in 2016, but has racked up in England, and for some godforsaken reason has decided instead of living in the Bahamas or Monaco, he's going to live in Leicester. No offence to the good people of Leicester, it just wouldn't be my first choice if I had that sort of money. Driving around in a BMW, no driving licence, running a bunch of businesses under a different name, and apparently claiming asylum here under a different name, and the authorities weren't aware of that, and it is believed that he is probably among 15 or 20 similar figures in this country, and the authorities do nothing. And they've got a tape of him bragging to a colleague of his. They're making good money. He says, we know everyone in this city is ours, no one touches us here, even the police won't stop you, while he's running clearly money laundering businesses. What do you make of that revelation, but also the fact that revelation has come from the BBC?
Indeed. First of all, very well done to the BBC. You and I are sometimes critical of the BBC, but this is it doing a real public service, very impressive work. But it obviously leads on to the question, why weren't the police doing this? That this is such courage for journalists to do this, because this is clearly a bad man, a nasty man. People like that tend to know people who can cause you harm, to put it at its least likely to be libelous. And therefore to do that as a journalist without the protection that you get as a policeman, without the backup that you get if you're in the police, is hugely courageous. But it raises the question, why weren't the police doing it? This man seems to have been in open sight, flouting any law he felt like flouting, then claiming asylum, and nobody does anything about it. Is it back to this question of not wanting to seem to be racist? And is that a much more deep-seated problem in policing than we have thought, and that the Henry Novak case raised for us in such stark and shocking terms?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, these people think they're above the law because, as far as they can tell, they pretty much are. And again, I wonder if we'll be able to deport him. I'm going to guess not. Iraqi Kurd, what are the odds?
Well, he'll probably have a family somewhere, won't he? I mean, he'll come up with some story that means he has to stay, but people who have committed crimes are not entitled to apply for asylum, so he ought to be removed immediately. We shouldn't be hanging about. Has he been arrested this morning? Have the police turned up and fingered his collar? what's going on.
Well, indeed. Are you, I mean, look, you've been speaking, sense on a lot of these things for a long time, Sir Jacob, but your government that, you were a leading member of for many years didn't actually, they talked the talk, but they didn't walk the walk. Again, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary now under Labour, she says a lot of good things, but again, when you see the small print, none of it's actually going to make a difference. Are you ashamed that under 14 years of the Tories, this was allowed to get so bad?
Yes, I am, really. That regrettably, the Conservative Party did not have a majority in 2019 to 2024 to repeal the Human Rights Act or to pull out of the European Convention on Human Rights. There were still a lot of people who were bitter about the Brexit vote, who wanted to keep every last vestige of Europeanism in our country. And therefore we couldn't take the fundamental step from which the other steps become possible. Leaving the ECHR, pulling out the Refugee Convention and so on, doesn't solve the problem in and of itself, but it allows you to pass laws that will solve the problem. And we kept on tiptoeing around that, trying to make policy that was within the bounds of the convention, that then turned out not to work. And I think this was weakness, it was a lack of backbone, but it was also, regrettably, facing up to a political reality that quite a lot of Conservative MPs in the last Parliament weren't very Conservative.
Yeah, this is certainly the case. You've been very vocal about this urge to unite the right, and whether it's I think that's probably very unlikely, certainly from what Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage have said, any sort of coalition before any general election, if and when it's held. Would actually damage both parties, but certainly working together afterwards, or at very least having a sort of a pact where standing down or being perhaps not bothering to campaign very much in certain seats, which were more likely to be won by the other party, could actually lead to more MPs being elected of similar persuasions. How much of a threat do you think the likely to be incoming Prime Minister Andy Burnham would be? How popular do you think he would be? How effective do you think he'll be?
Well, I think that victor at the next election will be the leader who is able to unite his or her wing of politics. So if Andy Burnham can unite the Greens and bring them back to the Labour Party, then he has a really serious chance of winning the next election. If he can't do that, he faces exactly the same problems as Keir Starmer. He's got no money, no idea how to make the economy grow, immigration that's out of control, a defence budget that can't be funded, and he will be very unpopular within a few months' time. As regards uniting the right, I take a lot of encouragement from Makerfield and Aberdeen South, because regardless of what the leaders are saying, the voters decided, if they were Conservative in Makerfield, to vote for Reform, and if they were Reform in Aberdeen South broadly, to vote Conservative. And so the right is beginning to unite by tactical voting anyway, and it's just a question of whether the leaders closer to an election decide to formalise that.
Do you think that voters are now wise to this? And, as you say, they will make their own decisions regardless of what the party leaders say?
I think you should never underestimate the intelligence of the British elector. I think they're much better informed and wiser than they're often given credit for, and that they're beginning to see where they need to vote to get the biggest effect for what they most want to achieve. So I think you're absolutely right that voters are taking this into their own hands and know what they're doing.
OK. On a completely different note, the Prime Minister is in the House of Commons right now, the current Prime Minister, and he's been issuing a formal apology on behalf of the British state to the victims of forced adoptions. 185,000 mothers and their children were babies were forced to be put up for adoption, devastating for the mums and for many of the children as well. Delivering an apology, it's the first formal apology from the state about this. Although it wasn't something that was formal government policy, institutions of the state, including the NHS and others, were, of course, involved in this. We've seen apologies from churches, from other government constituent parts of the United Kingdom already. But delivering the apology, Keir Starmer, after meeting with some of the mothers and children in Downing Street, he said, "We are deeply and profoundly sorry to the mothers who were told they were unfit, who were prevented from caring for their children. They desperately wanted to help and to keep them, and who have carried this loss for decades. To those who were not given the information they needed to provide informed consent, who faced pressure or coercion, who experienced practices that were unethical, to the sons and daughters. The children who are now adults, through pressure and coercion within these systems, were taken from their families, denied their identity, their history, and sometimes their safety. He says it is a stain on our history. There's no doubt this was a cruel practice, but many have said it's not necessary for the Prime Minister to apologise on behalf of the state, because this wasn't a state-run policy. This was something that was the norms of the time, a more conservative of the small c, more religious society, where actually many, parents would have forced this on their unwed teenage daughters as the best thing for both mother and child. Do you think it's appropriate for him to apologise?
I'm a little suspicious about making apologies for events over which one had no responsibility and has no control. I would be more concerned at the moment about the terrible results the NHS is getting in maternity units and the high level of deaths that we're getting compared to other countries. And to a degree, I wish the government would deal with today's problems rather than terrible things that happened in the past, some of them before Keir Starmer was born. That's not to say they weren't bad things, it's not to say that they shouldn't have happened, but the government apologising doesn't change anything. Whereas if there were to be a proper attempt to improve maternity services, that might change something. And I would make one other point, which is it is a great good fortune that these people were actually born, because nowadays, with our awful abortion laws, there's every chance that they would never have lived. And that, I think, is an even worse scandal and deserves a great priority.
Very interesting to hear that perspective. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, really good to talk to you. Enjoy the sunshine when you do get to lunch and your afternoon begins proper. Former Conservative Government Minister there, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. I'm going to get Philip Ingram's thoughts on what he just had to say there in just a couple of moments. We're going to take a quick break. Going to hear from you on the phone lines, get to some of your messages as well. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, 12:27 is the time. Philip Ingram is still with me. Philip, interesting to hear Jacob Rees-Mogg. Just finally on that last point, an interesting saying, look, we talk about it's awful, there's forced adoption, it's obviously awful, but also saying, to his point, he's a Catholic, he's opposed to all abortion at all times, perfectly reasonable philosophical point, saying, well, these babies were born.
Well, yes, and he's right in saying that, because the choice would have been, or if you go back to the cultural bit at the time, there would have been forced abortions.
Backstreet abortions.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, and therefore he's completely right. And the government, there's two different views as to whether the government should be doing this or not, but it's using political capital, it's using political time.
It's emoting, being a nice person in Parliament.
Getting a nice soundbite out instead of getting the substance out, as Sir Jacob said, the substance to get our maternity care right, to get our health.
Well, that's the thing. There's only so much time in Parliament. We're told we don't have parliamentary time for this or for that, and it's a fairly empty part of Parliament, to be fair, on this Thursday afternoon. But I mean, to be fair, it's mostly empty. It's only when it's PMQs or big, open of Parliament, state opening of Parliament, there are lots of people in there, and it's not meaning they're not working. They're doing other jobs. They're in committees. They're doing, other work. But every moment they spend emoting on something like this, or when they do these big debates, like or big statements where everyone stands up to say their own version of the thing that's been said 4 hours ago, that is time that could be spent making laws that could actually improve people's lives. I don't know, things like deporting convicted mass gang child rapists. The time they're spending right now, they could have drafted a... Honestly, I mean, and I'm not saying in any way that these forced abortions wasn't appalling, but it was of a different time.
It was, but if the Prime Minister, and here's where, I think an apology to be put onto Hansard in the formal record is something that could be done. But he could do that in his opening statement for just before PMQs, and do it in 15, 20 seconds. Yeah. And it's formally recorded, it's logged, it's out there, and all the rest. I mean,
is anyone saying they think this was a good thing? But the reality is, a lot of those times, a lot of those families, a lot of girls were told, teenage girls, they were being told, by the way, by their parents, this is the best thing, and they genuinely would have thought, a lot of them, they weren't doing it necessarily to be cruel. They thought it was the shame of being an unmarried mother when women didn't work, they couldn't support, there wasn't the same sort of social security, was so great that it was a stigma. We constantly do this when it's like apologies for people who've been convicted, for being homosexual and things like that. We're constantly trying to sort of change the past instead of improving the future, which is what the job of Parliament should be.
Well, exactly. You apologising for something that has happened.
You had no power over, no say in, had no role in.
It's a waste of time. In reality, it's making sure that you learn the lessons from that, and it doesn't happen in the future. But then our governments never learn lessons.
We know that.
Re-identifying
And again, my heart goes out to anyone in this section. I've got friends who come from forced abortions, and it's appalling what happened. But I just don't know at this point of Keir Starmer apologising. But I suppose if people feel this is some sort of comfort for them. But I just think parliamentary time, it should be used to improve the present and the future. I'm sorry, I really do. Let's go back to your calls. Graham is on the line in Wokingham, Graham, you want to talk about this grooming gang ringleader who we apparently can't deport.
Well, as it was more the Leicester situation.
Oh, Leicester. Oh, OK, apologies.
I think we can. Basically, I'm asking the question: if he came under false name.
This is the people smuggler, yeah.
Yeah. Is therefore taken money from the state under false pretences, which is fraud. Anybody who's groomed him to be able to give those answers is supporting him in that fraud. Yep. Why aren't we looking at prosecuting on fraud and using the Process of Crimes Act to remove any funds he's got?
Well, exactly. And apparently he's living like a very rich guy, because he is a very rich guy. I mean, the moment the BBC sort of, here's our dossier to the government, to the police, they should have moved in within hours. Get the guy. It's just extraordinary. It's just unbelievable. And get rid of him. Graham, it's painful, mate. It really is. What can I say? Let's get to some of your other messages about that Rochdale Pakistani grooming gang ringleader who's due to be freed from prison today. Andy Burnham's demanding the government do whatever they can to deport him. But again, You're going to be Prime Minister in a couple of weeks. Are you going to do whatever is necessary? Because some of the things necessary your Labour backbenchers might not like, Andy Burnham. Carl says, performative from Burnham to try and make himself more palatable to the public. The question should be, why is this not being done by the government already? Tell us the plan to stop these loopholes being exploited instead. The entire family should be stripped of all assets and deported, says Zach. Laura says, about bloody time, but many, many more must go. The people of Britain are fed up. Anthony says, it's almost like it's been teed up for him. Hey, look, Andy's on our side. Look, when he's PM, we'll be able to judge that particular pudding. And Aaron says, good. Andy can go with him too. General election now. And Mandy says, Starmer hiding from another horrendous situation that his government has caused. I hate to tell you, this guy sounds like would have arrived during the Tory government. You know, again, they've all failed on this front, haven't they? Thanks for your calls. Thanks for your messages. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to be talking more about, just how do we get rid of people we don't want to be here? We're going to be talking to Kim Bailey, who's the chair of the Crowborough Shield. They're a voluntary residents group dedicated to protecting interests and well-being and long-term future of Crowborough, as opposed to the asylum seekers put in the nearby camp. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. I don't know, are we allowed to say afternoon? Jacob Rees-Mogg said you have to wait till after lunch to say afternoon.
Yes, you need your lunch.
I didn't know that. I went to a comp, we didn't have that rule. It's just midday. To be fair, I usually get it wrong anyway.
Yeah,
but there we are. Exactly. Anyway, good evening, everybody.
Good night. Short day, right.
I'm Julie Hollywood. He's Philip Ingram. We don't know etiquette. But anyway, but we do know right from wrong. We absolutely do. Let's talk about, I mean, just all these mad cases and also some of the latest stats in terms of the facts and figures on the numbers being spent on the asylum seekers and those who are here who we don't want here, frankly, very much got no right to be here, with Kim Bailey. She's chair of the Crowborough Shield. Now, they're, I say, a voluntary residents group looking after the local residents' interests, as opposed to, you know, a bunch of young fighting-age men who've been moved into the local former military barracks. But she is also somebody who's, you know, here to talk about, you know, the huge costs of a lot of this as well. Good afternoon to you, Kim.
Hi, Julia. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. Look, I want to talk about the costs, but I also just want to get your thoughts on these grooming gang, you know, Pakistani, British citizen, you know, being stripped of both, guy who's in prison, going to be released today, and you know, where's he going to go? How do we deport him? Because there's some loophole in this Immigration Act, and then this BBC investigation showing this guy who's apparently a big people smuggler in France and convicted, comes over here, assumed name, living here, apparently life of Riley, running dodgy businesses, money laundering. Police had no idea he was here. It was the BBC journalists who found him. What do you make of these stories?
I mean, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that this government just does not have a handle on any of this, you know, from people coming here, deportations, grooming gangs. They have just got no idea. I just think this government is completely incompetent. They can't see the bigger picture. They're very reactive. They're not looking at actually how to solve the crisis. Yeah. And essentially what they're doing is advertising and inviting more people to come by saying, hey, look, we've opened up these massive military sites. We've got another 3,700 bed spaces. Yeah. Come over. They're going to be open for 5 years. It is just an absolute sham. And I do not understand how someone such as Shabana Mahmood and Alex Norris can be in the positions they're in and not see what they are doing. It's just complete incompetence. And obviously it looks like Andy Burnham is going to be taking over very soon. And, you know, I don't think Shabana's going to go. I mean, it's going to get worse.
It is interesting, isn't it? What you know, again, I know it was a speech about the economy on Monday, but what he chooses to speak about in his first speeches on next, you know, would-be Prime Minister is his choice. Immigration, all of the issues we've got, illegal and mass, you know, uncontrolled, you know, legal migration as well, just not mentioned at all.
No. But you talk about the economy. I mean, if you look at just local level economy, opening up the camp that they have opened up here in Crowborough, houses are not selling. Houses have lost value. This is what people have put their entire life's investment into, ready for retirement. So that's on a local level. And what they're saying, you know, if these figures are correct, 18,700 per asylum seeker that comes here, plus the deportation figures, which I think is around 50,000 per person. The 86% don't work who have come over claiming asylum on the boat.
You've nailed it. Those are all the stats I was going to put to you,
Exactly. But, you know, you've got 4,600 that were deported that came back. 723 of those were removed or have come back more than twice. This is just
but isn't it, aren't we told again? But we're told again and again that, you know, the thing is, and even with these mad, you know, London to Paris, you know, one in, one out, that exchange scheme, which Keir Starmer agreed, even then, those people come back in. But again, they say, yes, but this time we can catch them because we've got their biometrics, we've got their fingerprints. You think, well, then how are they getting into the country? But that's it. Let's go back over those stats, though, because Home Office has revealed, again, they're always forced to reveal these things, that when you look at all the costs of processing an asylum claim, accommodation costs, support, all the legal appeals on that, you're looking at an average, of 18,700 per case, and that's a total £1.7 billion. We're told we don't have enough money, we can't find the money to, you know, actually, you know, buy some fighter jets, to have some munition for our armies, to actually, you know, proper flak jackets. I mean, basic equipment to keep our country safe.
They've got nowhere to train, even if they did have the money,
because they're all the asylum camps. But they've got 1.7 billion pounds for this.
And what we often see, especially here in Crowborough, is that you get people who are welcoming the asylum seekers saying, and you see it on the national news, and Zach Palensky, the Green Party, they're all saying asylum seekers do not contribute to the cost of, you know, the living crisis, and they come and they contribute. Actually, these figures are saying that 86% don't work. They're unemployed. 18,700. Many families don't even earn that much money. This is obscene amounts of money that is just being swallowed. How people can still say that the asylum seekers that come here do not contribute to the cost of living crisis is absurd. We see placards saying from the left at counter protest saying truth and hope. Well, actually, they're not even looking for the truth. No. They're just listening to a load of nonsense from the Green Party, essentially.
No, and again, and we see, I mean, you know, I would rather someone was in a military camp than they were in, for instance, my local, well, you know, they're still in my local hotel at the end of the road on the high street, or, you know, if you live in a village where the hotel is a key part of the local economy and where people get married and have their anniversaries and things, you know, you need that local resource, but at least you know where they are. They're all in one place. Whereas now they're in, you know, houses of multiple occupancy in bedsits here and there, or in this bizarre situation we've seen, I think it's in Shropshire, where they were just going to take a wonderful, I mean, lovely looking estate of family houses, and basically it's new builds, supposed to be social housing for local people, and next to a lovely village, and just filling it up with 81 asylum seekers.
Well, you've also got, like here with Crowborough, they constantly go on that they're using ex-military bases. Now, remember, Crowborough was never an ex-military base.
It's still being used.
It was a cadet training centre. So thousands of cadets have been displaced from that. So they are essentially saying the benefits of housing 540 asylum seekers outweighs the benefits that a lifelong cadet training centre that was used by guides and scouts and schools all over the country.
A local facility,
Absolutely was. It was the only structured social activity. And obviously that's why we're now taking this government, the Home Secretary, to the judicial review, which is in less than 3 weeks. So we've still got a bit of way to go because, you know, our district council, which is a Green Party led by Rachel Millward, they would not step up. So in all the other towns, what you'll see is the district council supporting them. So this has been a completely community-led campaign that has been funded by this community. We've got 20 grand more to go, and then we're in court in less than 3 weeks.
Well, if anyone's listening and wants to help, but can I just say, you don't need to pay for a KC, because I'm pretty sure, Kim, that you could do that in court, because you know your stuff. Can I ask you, we talked a lot about this, and with a lot of your colleagues at Crowborough Shield when this was first mooted, and then I think they were all bussed in overnight, weren't they? So there couldn't be protests. There's your giveaway. When people move in overnight, that's your giveaway. How much of a problem has there been, if any, in terms of concerns for particularly, let's face it, you know, schoolgirls and young women in the area? Because of course people say there's Crowborough and then there's this site. No, it's like a 20-minute walk.
Yeah. So, I mean, just for instance, I mean, there's lots of the impact has been huge on this town. People are changing their ways of life. Parents are not allowing their children to walk home on certain routes. They've got to walk the long way round. And there's a lot of alcohol and drug misuse across the town because it's a zero policy for alcohol and drugs on the camp. So obviously that's coming out into the street. You're seeing a lot of alcohol abuse by the asylum seekers in the streets. Now, just last night, we took some children for a picnic in the local park. Yep. And what we actually saw was an asylum seeker who had apparently been drinking all day, staggering around. It was just completely inappropriate at a children's park. Yep. That is what we're seeing. That is the reality.
And police not doing anything?
They're not. So a couple of the residents, approached us and said, we've reported it to the police. They've done nothing. And I attend the NGO, which is non-governmental organisation meeting with the Home Office that said any sort of behaviour like that should be reported to the police. People are reporting it. Nothing is happening. And this is a big concern because we know that as soon as that judicial review is over, the police resource, which is immense here, is going to be pulled. And I mean, my biggest fear is people will lose hope after this JR. At the moment, people have got hope, but as soon as you take that hope away, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I think that is a really worrying time for not just Crowborough, but look at all the other sites that are now opening up. You're seeing the same things happen there. The difference is you've got a district council supporting them. We didn't, and they're still not supporting us.
You're a fantastic advocate for your local community. Kim Bailey, chair of the Crowborough Shield. Please run for Parliament. Please, more sane people in Parliament like him. Thank you so much for joining us. Philip Ingram, incredibly impressive guest there. And again, let's face it, the government, they don't mind as long as it's not on the front pages. They don't really care.
Well, exactly. And I know Crowborough Camp. I was there as a cadet on many occasions, and it's a beautiful little training camp. It's not designed to hold large numbers of fighting-age men.
And you've always been very penal. You always use that phrase. Everyone's got to remember who these men are.
The majority of them are fighting-age men. If they were looking after their families, their women folk and all the rest of it, if they were being oppressed and under so much danger, they'd have brought them as well. They're not.
They left the women and kids.
And we have got more fighting-age men have come into this country where we know nothing about their backgrounds than we have in the total of the British military. We need to start getting rid of them. And we put them into holding camps, former military camps, yes, but have the gates closed so that they're not allowed to go out into the local communities. This is the thing. I think
when they first said we were going to take people out of the hotels, we went, yes. And then, hold on a minute, they're all going into local bedsits in my street. Oh, no, can we move them out of those? We're going to put them in camps. And again, it's only a tiny fraction of those who've arrived, a tiny fraction. And then again, I think we not unreasonably assumed that they would be held effectively behind bars. Nope. Yeah. And again, that's interesting what she said. Well, you can't do drinks and drugs. You can't drink alcohol and have drugs.
They do it in the village.
In the local park.
Until they can prove who they are, and therefore they should not be allowed to start an asylum application until they can prove who they are. They stay locked behind bars in a closed camp.
Behind bars at 100% the entire time. I'm sorry. Done. I keep saying, I'm done. There we are. Just to finally, Keir Starmer said he's been issuing this apology to the mothers and children of forced adoptions. He's also stated that he's asked the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, she's busy at the moment, isn't she? To consider what can be done. That's the phrase. Consider what can be done to deport the Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed from the UK. This is what Downing Street has said this. I mean,
Oh, I consider
You know
it.
exactly what you need to do. Call everyone into Parliament tomorrow or Saturday, change the law, get him out.
Yeah. Keir Starmer is supposed to be a leader. You know, the Prime Minister leads. It's not, oh, Home Secretary, consider what can be done. It's, oh, Home Secretary, find a way of getting rid...
Can you pick this into the long grass until I'm gone?
Correct. That's what he's doing.
It's just extraordinary.
It's embarrassing.
I keep saying...
It's embarrassing.
I keep saying...
He needs to show leadership.
I cannot wait for him to go, you just don't hate him enough. This is the key thing. You don't hate him enough.
Let's see if Andy Burnham actually leads, or is he going to get the same script?
Given where we are, in terms of what the victims have said about what happened in Manchester, in terms of the failures to actually address the issues in Manchester, and even to address with with the right spirit the results of inquiries such as they've taken place there, lack of action. I don't think it bodes very well, but there we are.
No,
thank you very much. I'm Philip Ingram. Thank you for that. 12:47 is the time. I'm going to take a quick break. And yeah, we are going to cheer ourselves up. A lot of dark news today. We're going to come back to England's World Cup win last night. But will there be another one? That's coming up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Also, the home of football. Come on, Talk Sport, of course, just down the road. Now, I've got to point out that no one's feeling too bright-eyed and bushy-tailed today after the result last night. But thank goodness we at least were celebrating with our drinks rather than commiserating with England being out of the World Cup. No, we won 2-1 against the Democratic Republic of Congo. But what happens next? Well, let's talk about all this with former footballer and Talk Sport presenter Mickey Gray, who joins us on the line. A very good afternoon to you, Mickey.
Julia, how are you doing?
Very well indeed. Well, that's a complete lie. I've got a dreadful hangover, mate. The celebrations went on a bit longer than they should have last night, but for other reasons as well. But I've got no one but myself to blame, as my husband lovingly told me at 6:30 this morning. Anyway, look, it was a nail-biting match, as they've all been so far in this World Cup. But what did you make of how England played?
Yeah, it's been a little bit intense, isn't it? They're making us work hard, aren't they, as supporters, when we're watching them. Look, I don't think anybody expected DR Congo to take the lead after 7 minutes, and then we had to hang on until the 70th minute and completely turn the game around. So from that side of things, it was excellent. You know, the way that we finished.
Yeah, we didn't fall apart. That's something.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Thomas Tuchel's kind of putting a makeshift defence together, obviously because of the injuries that we've got in that right-back position. Declan Rice filling in there. And I think there was some really good standout performances. Jude Bellingham, who's having a very good World Cup, and obviously Harry Kane as well, coming up the goods yet again. I mean, his second goal was absolutely fantastic. And they say in a World Cup, it's more of a marathon rather than a sprint, and we can only get better, can't we?
You say that we have a long history of not only getting better, but I like your optimism. I tell you, it was. I mean, let's face it, we were all horrified when that first goal went in from the Democratic Republic of Congo after just 7 minutes. The look of shock on everyone's faces were quite astonishing, weren't they? They looked totally sort of, what the hell just happened? That wasn't in the playbook.
Yeah, the thing is now, I mean, there's no weak nations. And I think, you know, this World Cup, obviously the addition of more nations playing in the World Cup, everybody was kind of sceptical about it before it started, but they've came to the party and they want to play. And DR Congo was one of those sides. And you have to really be on your game. And there's no question that England haven't kind of reached the levels that we expected them to yet. But we're winning football matches. We're going through the groups.
A win's a win.
And that's what we need to do. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, there is that. And again, a lot of people say, oh, you know, Democratic Republic of Congo, I mean, you know, made it through. You know, when there was Zaire, was the last time, the only time they've even managed to compete in a World Cup. It's only because it's such a huge number of teams competing. This time they've even got in. But, you know, huge number of their players play in the Premiership. You know, these are seriously good players. Look, we've got to look ahead to what happens on Monday. The next match is against Mexico. Not ideal. It's 1 in the morning, Monday morning, so not ideal for us to watch it back home, but not ideal for the players. High altitude in the Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. A home match, effectively, for Mexico in those conditions. How do you rate our chances?
Well, it's going to be difficult. There's no question of that. It's certainly not a game that we can walk into and think that we're just going to breeze through. And you just mentioned there, Julia, about the Azteca. I mean, Mexico have got an incredible record there. I think they've only lost twice, so this is going to be a real test. But look, we're getting to the round of 16 now, and you don't expect an easy ride going to the round of 16, and then hopefully the quarters, semis, and final at the end of it. They're a good side. They play with a lot of pace. You mentioned the altitude there as well. They're going to have, obviously, the wrath of the support in that stadium. Yeah. And these England supporters have got to make themselves heard because we do need that 12th man. It's going to be a tough game.
It is so crucial, isn't it? Explain to us, I mean, in terms of the conditions, because we obviously have been concerns about, you know, heat exhaustion, and we've had these rehydration breaks. I love the fact the fans just boo the whole way through that, quite rightly. And let's face it, most of us think that is just about the Americans getting an extra commercial break. You know, their attention spans are a bit shorter than ours. But, I mean, in terms of, you know, the conditions, the heat, humidity, altitude, what difference does that make? How much of an impact can that have on these players?
Yeah, it definitely plays a part. I've played a few games in altitude myself, and it's very hard for your breathing. You've got to get used to the altitude, which I think the England players are certainly going to have to do over the next few days. They're going to have to acclimatise as much as they possibly can.
But apparently it takes 2 weeks to acclimatise, not 2 days.
Yeah, well, we haven't got that amount of time, have we, Julia? So I think these players and whatever the you know, the strength conditioners or whatever else that they've got in the training camp, they're going to have to help them as much as they possibly can. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Mexico have got such a great record at the Azteca Stadium. So I think it's going to be one of those games where Thomas Tuchel might have to play smart, use a little bit of experience, and then maybe catch them on the break at times from a football and side of things terms. So it's going to be really hard. It really is. I mean, I hope we adapt to it very well. And it's, you say you're going into the round of 16. Mexico are no pushovers. No. And I just hope that we're up for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. What do you make of Thomas Tuchel, the manager, suggesting that, well, look, it's 1 in the morning Monday. I mean, come on, that is rough. That's not just staying up a bit late, realistically. You're staying up all night. And so it's a school day. It's a work day for most of us. I think my tube train on Monday morning might be a little bit quiet, certainly, but it's suggesting that maybe school kids should be allowed to stay up and watch it, miss school, or as people say, just go to school and be tired along with the teachers. Do you agree?
Well, I think, wasn't it Scotland? I think they had an extra day in bank holiday as well. So there's no reason why England can't do exactly the same thing. Look, if you're going to miss 1 day of school, I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. We obviously know that all the school children want to watch the England game. Yes, it's not the best time, 1 a.m. in the morning. but I think a nice cup of coffee or something just to keep everybody awake might just do the trick for us all, Julia.
Well, there is that. Can I just say, I mean, look, we all remember our school days. I don't remember doing any actually learning of anything any time in July in my school term time. I don't know about you. So, look, are you going to be staying up all night to watch it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm kind of fixated on the games. There's only a few that I've missed. I'm obviously working on quite a lot of the games through the night for talkSport and covering those, which has been absolutely
keeping you
brilliant.
Busy, yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. But it's great. Who wouldn't want to be a part of the World Cup? And certainly watching England's one of the highlights. Hopefully, it's going to be a highlight on Monday morning.
I hope so. I think that's why I decided to. Well, I've got to be honest. Most of my hangover comes down to the nervous drinking through the match. But there we are. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it, Mickey. Do you think we can go all the way? Given that after Mexico, if we did beat them, I think is it likely to be someone like Brazil, and then everyone's saying France are the leaders.
Yeah, well, I think what's waiting for us at the moment is Brazil and then Argentina and obviously France if they keep playing the way that they are in the final. So it's going to be no easy task. And I think everybody at the moment they're playing second fiddle, I suppose, to France because they've been so good. But as I said before, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yep. I like your optimism. Mickey Gray, former footballer, talkSport presenter, lots of the overnight coverage. Thank you so much indeed. Philip Ingram still, he's going to get talking to us.
No, England.
You've watched the match for me, but you've given fair criticism.
England have got the potential to pull it out of the bag. Yeah, they do.
Harry Kane is one of the best players in the world. We could do it.
They're either going to come together and do it, or they're not.
Well, that's good analysis.
Yeah.
I think this is why you and I are not football commentators. Just some breaking news for you. This will cheer you all up. Remember that Rochdale grooming gang ringleader, the one who's convicted of 30 child rapes, including children as young as 12 years old, who was sentenced to 20 years behind bars in 2012 and is already due to be released today? Shabir Ahmed. Yeah. He's now been released from HM Prison Leeds. He's out. OK, he's going to be tagged and all that nonsense, but, yeah, he's going to be out on the streets. Not deported because he's given up his Pakistani nationality, his citizenship, and we've taken away his British citizenship. So, lovely, cheerful story for Ian Collins.